Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some reaction to the 2022 British Grand Prix. I am grinning from ear to ear. That was absolutely incredible. And yeah, all right, fine. Bit of recency bias, so this is just a reaction. Perhaps race of the season already. I don't know. Let's try and beat it next time out in Austria. But what a Grand Prix. I think that had just about everything. I think that's. I'm trying to think of what we didn't have. Well, yeah, but had just about everything. Absolutely brilliant race. Obviously, most important part I do want to say straight off the bat for anybody who saw the initial start to the Grand Prix, Zhou Guanyu is absolutely fine. Alex Albon has been taken to hospital for precautionary checks. Everybody else is okay, which I'm not going to sit here and say is a miracle because that really doesn't do F1 or the FIA justice. It just shows how far safety's come in F1. Absolutely incredible. So great they're all okay, but what a Grand Prix. What a Grand Prix. I think really we're just going to jump into it because I think it's just easier nowadays rather than sitting here doing a massive intro. It's just best to hop straight in and say a very good evening once again to Dan. I know you're a bit grumpy, mate, like me, that we weren't there this weekend, but I think that made up for it.
I think so too. I definitely agree. Just like you, grinning from ear to ear. That was utterly insane. Like, I would have loved to have been there, don't get me wrong, but watching it from home, I am so happy for everyone that was there. And I think you're right. I don't think it's too extreme to say that was race of the season. Absolutely everything. So I cannot wait to get started with this one. Thanks for having me, bud.
That's all right. Thank you for coming a little bit earlier this time as well, so you can stick around, which would be nice. I mean, those, forget everything else, just the last few laps, I'd have taken them for any Grand Prix any day without the rest of it. So absolutely remarkable this weekend. We will talk about the big accident later, obviously. Everybody's okay, which is the most important thing. We'll get into that a little bit later. So we will start with, I guess you could say the good news, and that is that Carlos Sainz, you're a winner, baby. He is a race winner. Finally, Carlos Sainz. I'm so happy for him, Dan. So happy for him. Obviously, a little bit of frustration on the other side of the garage from Charles Leclerc. He feels maybe things could have been done on strategy to help him out a little bit better. I tend to think, when I was watching the race, I thought, why are you not bringing Charles in? And then you think, well, maybe they've not got enough time. Then you watch Karun Chandhok's analysis afterwards, and you're like, well, you've got enough time. Pull him in, make the call, but they didn't. And, Carlos Sainz won't care about that. He won the Grand Prix. Played the team game, of course, as well, by following team orders. So he did his bit for the team, but fantastic drive and just kind of disappeared towards the end, didn't he? I mean, I'm just seeing Sainz and Perez as the top two. No offense to Verstappen, Leclerc, anybody else. It just makes me smile a little bit more. A day for the number twos. That was harsh. I think Dan's dead. Not literally. He'll come back. I'm sure. He'll let me know when he's back in. But yeah, absolutely so happy to see those two up there. Great result. And we'll talk about Perez in a minute. But Carlos Sainz, like I said, follow the team orders was called in. Definitely. I don't know what you guys in chat think about that, whether or not you like having the team orders at that point. I think, if I'm being completely honest, they were a little bit too late. I think they should have come earlier. Possibly costing the team a 1-2. We'll never know, of course, but it feels like, I think I wrote on lap 16 in my notes, why are they not swapping these cars around? Because they were losing time to Hamilton. Obviously, Hamilton ended up P3 in the end, so not, maybe he wouldn't have got them, I don't know, but it's just, a lot of you don't like team orders, and I get that, but that's the kind of situation where you need to make the switch. But having said that, I don't know if you're back, Dan.
I am indeed.
You
Sorry
are.
about that.
I was just about team orders. Having said that about team orders, the reality is that when Leclerc did get in front of Sainz, he didn't exactly disappear, did he?
No, exactly. And I think there were definitely stages of this race where Charles was quicker than Sainz. And I think when Hamilton was catching in those early stages, maybe they should have acted a little bit quicker. But at the same time, with the damage that Charles had, I think that DRS really helped him at that stage of the race. And even later on, as you said, it wasn't as if Charles was able to really sprint off into the distance, probably like he would have hoped. So, yeah, it's a bit of a sticky one with team orders, but I do really enjoy the fact that they did play it out a little bit longer than we've seen other teams do at certain points this season. Apologies, I didn't really catch fully what you said there. So hopefully that answers your question.
I was just rambling away, mate. You know what I'm like. I'm just assuming somebody's listening. I don't mind if they're not. I was just saying I'm just really, really happy for Carlos Sainz today, and it's so nice to see Sainz and Perez up there. And I kind of, before you cut out, I just went and said, it's a day for the number twos.
Oh, That's a
Harsh. I know
harsh
it's
way to
harsh,
start
but
it.
it's
Yeah,
true. Come
goodness
on.
me. Yeah, I guess you're not wrong, especially with the Perez side of things, the way things have gone recently. But it's not been plain sailing for Charles at the moment, and I think there was definitely elements today where Ferrari were in two minds because when Verstappen's out of play, it would have been very easy to just go all in on Charles Leclerc. And I think if they had a little bit more luxury of time later on with the safety car, they still would have probably aimed to favour Leclerc. So you're right, it is quite nice that it is the number twos that get it their way for a change.
I will say in my notes for Carlos Sainz, because I want to be really positive for him, but this is F1. We've got to look at the other side. Was leading, coming under pressure from Max Verstappen, went straight on at the, I think was it final right-hander of Beckett's. Got that one, went wide. That cost him the lead at that stage. At that point, and I wrote it in my notes, well, that's that then, is what I wrote, because I thought Verstappen was just going to disappear. So in some ways, people could argue he got a little bit lucky with Max Verstappen's problems, but he didn't make Max Verstappen run wide and catch that debris at the end of the day, which is what damaged Verstappen's car. And Sainz, you know what's coming, was there to pick up the pieces when that luck did fall his way. So, I'm not going to tear into too much for that. People make mistakes, but I did worry at that point that he'd made that mistake and it was going to all start unraveling. And then the team orders came in from Ferrari as well. And I was like, oh, it's just not going to be your day, Carlos. And then it all spun back round as well. Great decision to bring him in for his pit stop. Also, great decision from Carlos at the safety car restart to kind of put the team in their place and say, no. They wanted him to back up to 10 car lengths to give Charles Leclerc a chance to get his tyres up to temperature. And Carlos was sort of like, well, no, come on, guys. I'm just as at risk as he is, so I'm not going to back off and start playing silly games. He said something like, I might be wrong. Team radio is not always great. He said something like, "Stop making things up," or whatever, something along those lines. And I was like, oh dear. But yeah, it all worked out at the end for him, is what I'm trying to say. And I think some great calls in there from his side, and I suppose you could argue from Ferrari's side as well. I just think that if a safety car comes out, even if your driver is coming round Stowe, you just hop on the radio and say box. And then if your tyres are just a little bit late out, a second, it's not going to hurt. These mechanics are always ready for safety cars. They'll have seen Ocon slowing down. I think there was time, but I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a team boss. It's easy for me to say sat here on a Sunday afternoon, what are you doing? But, they had all the data there. But I'm just saying Karun Chandok's analysis was quite clear that they probably had enough time. It would have been tight, to be fair. But I'm just so shocked, Dan, that I'm sat here questioning Ferrari's strategy on a stream. It's so rare.
That doesn't seem right, does it? Yeah, it's one of those things that I'd always like to assume, and assuming in Formula One is such an incorrect thing to do, but I will assume in this instance that there's got to be someone that's always got to be aware that if a safety car came out right now, what would we do? And I know there's always going to be a bit of leeway with that, but at this stage of the race, you'd always think there's someone who's got an eye on it or got an idea. And at that point in time, yeah, exactly, especially with a team like Ferrari, with all their history and the fact they're fighting for a world championship, you would think someone would be pretty on that. But at the same time, you've got two guys at the front with Hamilton behind. I don't really see what's the worst that could have happened if Charles Leclerc stopped at that particular time, because he only would have dropped down to P3. And if the two behind him didn't stop, he would have been on the softs, they would have been on the hard. So 11 seconds, if that is exactly the time we're going to roll with, I feel that's enough time to make that decision. I feel like a lot of people sitting at home could have made that decision. But, we always say we're not the people in that position. And it's a very different story when you're on that pit wall in the moment with all that pressure. So splitting the strategies is the worst thing to do, maybe not. And I'm not going to completely say that backing up Sainz 10 car lengths would have been an awful idea. I still think the result would have been similar, and maybe Perez or Hamilton would have won if that was the case. But I think the idea that, Verstappen out of the running for the lead, Charles really had a great opportunity to claw back in the standings. 10 car lengths, could Carlos have held off Hamilton and Perez? I think he would have given it a good go. And I think 10 car lengths, what would that have been at a restart? Maybe 2 seconds on a restart? Maybe it could have been a 1-2. It might have been worth the gamble from Leclerc's point of view. But like you say, I think Carlos, for his championship, the way his season is kind of rebounding recently, I love the fact he was hungry enough to pretty much put that call in the bin and say, no, guys, that is such a ridiculous call for my race. This is a race where I was on pole position and I fought all the way through and want to win. And that's something, especially for Ferrari number 2 drivers, we've not always seen. And I think at this stage of the season where it's still open who's in the title hunt, I think that was really nice to see from Sainz, and a very much deserved victory, apart from that mistake at Chapel.
I want to retract a statement, or part of a statement. I referred to Sainz and Perez as number 2 drivers. Now, Perez is, I think, quite clearly playing that second fiddle at Red Bull, but Carlos Sainz is now only 11 points behind Leclerc in the championship. So I didn't take that. I wasn't really looking at the standings while I was watching the race, because I was watching the race and I was thinking, Leclerc's the guy. He's going for the championship. You need to swap these around. But actually, 11 points in it, that's pretty damn close between the 2 drivers. So maybe Ferrari aren't looking at it the same way as a lot of people are and saying, Leclerc versus Verstappen. Maybe they're saying it could be either of our drivers versus Verstappen. Ferrari might even be thinking we want the constructors. I don't know. But Space said in chat, a lot of people sat at home did make that decision. I like it when people say that, because that's exactly how I feel sometimes. Like, well, I made the call and I'm an idiot. So, why are they not? But it's Ferrari, isn't it? So, but I don't want that to take away from Sainz's performance today, because as Jamie said in chat, I think it was Jamie, Sainz was absolutely on it today. I loved his radio message yesterday, by the way, after qualifying. That's P1, mate, and it's again, really crap paraphrasing, but basically, you're joking, right? The lap was terrible. How am I on pole? I loved that reaction. So well done to Carlos Sainz for that victory, and this could be the result that not kickstarts his season, because like I say, he's still on 127 points, 11 off his teammate, but it could be the one that kind of makes him hit a little bit more consistency. He's been a little bit up and down at times, hasn't he? Some mistakes creeping in, so hopefully he can really kick on from here, but just chuffed. And I think Martin Brundle was talking I think it was in the race or pre-race, about glass ceilings in Formula One, and your first pole, your first win, your first championship. He's done 2 this weekend. So that's going to really set him up nice for the rest of the season. So massive congrats to him. 150th Grand Prix as well, I believe. Yeah. Amazing how these things work out. So Chuffer, just looking at my notes, I don't think there's anything really, apart from him going off at Beckett's, lost the back end of the car. The team orders we've talked about. He's going to have to do a bit of fuel saving around lap 37, which he wasn't overly thrilled about, which you can understand. I was told he was free to fight with his teammate on lap 29, or Leclerc was told free to fight, and then 2 laps later, they were swapped around, I think. So not that free to fight in the end. But hey, Carlos won't care. He got that one. We've sort of talked about Leclerc, I guess, but big moment for him in the Grand Prix. And I do wonder if we'll get something in a day or two or next weekend about that front wing, because he threw it up the inside of Perez on lap 1. How that didn't end up with a Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc crash, well, because Verstappen tried to avoid it on the outside. He was smart with that one, but how that didn't end up in a bigger crash, I don't know. But that caused damage to his car. I think Checo tagged, I think it was Sainz just, which put damage on his car. I might be wrong on that one, and I fully expected Leclerc to have to pit. He didn't, and he kept going, and I'm just wondering how much. They reckon 5 points of downforce that cost him. Ted Kravitz wasn't quite so convinced, but I just wonder if we might hear something in the next few days that might have cost him a little bit in terms of lap time, although he didn't. I say that he didn't seem to be struggling, did he, at all with it, which was amazing when you consider that Perez dropped right off the top runners and had to pit to replace it.
Yeah, really lucky to get away with that one. Like you say, even after the contact was made, it looked like a little bit of front wing came off through Copse as well and went flying back into Perez, and he lost a bit more. So the fact that Perez had to pretty much compromise his whole race through that contact, and Leclerc not only kept on going, but like you say, had the pace to keep up with the leaders. It's quite scary, really. And I mentioned earlier, I think the DRS, when he was caught behind his teammate, helped him a little bit, but even when he got in front of Sainz, he still had a pace that was representative to lead the Grand Prix. So that was really quite impressive from Leclerc. I mean, it was quite a chunk of front wing. So if he hadn't have lost that, I think he probably would have run the race today. But at the same time, he was the one that pretty much caused that incident in the first lap with that chuck it down the inside of Perez and hope for the best. So he deserved a bit of damage on that one. Lucky to get away with it. And I think Perez at that point of the race, very unlucky to get that damage and pretty much to be out of contention from so early on. So he was very thoughtful and thankful, I guess is the word, to get back in at the end.
I'm watching the F2 and F3 this weekend. Tom Gaymore kept saying it quite a bit. We live in a world now where we have to, or where people seem to have to apportion blame. I would say that's first lap. It's a bold move. It's first lap. It's contact. not really a penalty in that for me, but do you think there'll be people out there that think there should be, Dan? Do you think there should have been some sort of slap on the wrist? Because it did compromise Checo's race. Not that it ultimately mattered in the end, but it did compromise Checo's race. But I think that's first lap. Fair enough. Bit of a squabble. Because we want him to race. We want him to be aggressive. We want to take his opportunities. It's just, unfortunately, these cars are just still going to fall apart when they make contact with other people.
Yeah, it was hard racing. I don't think there should have been a penalty for that one. I do think it's Leclerc's fault, if anyone. If he hadn't thrown it down the inside, then there wouldn't have been that contact. But at the same time, Checo didn't give him much space on the
He
inside.
did come across, didn't he, to avoid... I think avoid Max is probably rather than throw it up the inside, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those corners as well where it is always going to pinch. There's not really enough room for 3 cars unless they're being all of them really generous. So those things are going to happen, especially on lap 1. I think there were other incidents today where I think drivers pushed a little bit too much and got lucky without penalties. But this one in particular, no, I think that's fine. I think they judged that one pretty spot on at the time.
Yeah, Checo, obviously that big damage to his front wing. You mentioned about the debris coming off Leclerc's car, I think, at Copse, which struck Checo's car, I think, as well. So that dropped him down to P16. And I thought, oh, Checo, you know, a few races ago, we're talking about you maybe challenging for a championship. I think a few people wishful thinking now. I'd love him to, but I'm not convinced he will. Drop down to 16th place. I thought that was game over for him. And then you look at the timing screen and the cheeky git is second place. Because it's what Checo does, isn't it? It's what he does. Absolutely unbelievable. I guess you've got to say, safety car, like we said with Russell so many times this season, did fall at the perfect time for him to come in, get rid of those tyres, put on the soft so he could go racing. But he was slowly making progress through pit stops and overtaking anyway through the field. So absolutely fantastic from Checo today. Great recovery drive. P2. Maybe with all that at the end, he might have had a shot at the win, but there was such a great battle between him, Leclerc, and Hamilton. He was under investigation for cutting, which is just going on screen now, actually, funny enough, in the photos, for cutting the final corner. I'm maybe controversially going to say that I'm totally fine with that because Charles Leclerc also ran off all 4 wheels at Stowe. So I think that's 6 of 1, half dozen. They're a little bit like Leclerc and Verstappen, I think it was. Was it last year or a couple of years ago when they had that really fun battle through the last few corners and there was some question marks over track limits? Ultimately, I think the stewards have probably looked at that and gone, well, you know, you did do that, Charles. And yes, he did cut that corner, but he didn't. Yeah, he lost the position to Hamilton, and you'd already kept your position by going off. I don't know what goes in the steward's mind. I'm not even going to try and work it out, but fantastic result for him today, and I think that just a nice bounce back after Canada is guessed. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but miserable end to his weekend in Canada, and a great comeback in so many ways this weekend.
Yeah, definitely, and someone who I would, like you say, had a really quiet race. I think it was like Carlos Sainz for all those years at McLaren and even last season at Ferrari, where something would happen at the start and then all of a sudden at the end of the race, he was P4 or P5 and you couldn't quite work out how it happened. And it was almost like that today. And as you said, that safety car timing was perfect. But even before that safety car came out, he was up to P5, was it? Without having done his final stop, which was such a long run on those medium tyres, which we know Perez is so good at doing. He's notorious for looking after those tyres, and it's exactly what he did today. And on that restart, very easily, he could have sat down, taken that P4, let the 2 Ferraris fight in front, stay behind Hamilton and say, you know what? Through all the nonsense I've had today, P4 is a great result. And yet he really fought for it. He wanted that win and to come away with second place. Again, it's great for Ferrari to claw back points on Verstappen, but so is Perez. And I think he's 33 behind Max now. So though we've said, you know, Sainz isn't really that number 2, Perez isn't fully out of it just yet and is definitely doing a better job than last season. And I think is someone that, okay, if Max had no issues today, Perez would have been behind him. But certainly this year, there has been that more consistent side of Checo. And all weekend long, he's been a little bit slower than the 2 Ferraris and Max. But even still, it's not like last season where he's not in that fight. And you always say when that luck comes your way, you've got to take it. And he definitely did do that today. Very much deserving of P2. Not sure I would have given him driver of the day personally. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And I'm not so sure I'm as lenient with you with that Leclerc incident. I'll make it very, very clear that last season when Verstappen would push people off, I wasn't a big fan of it. But at the same time, the FIA set a precedent that was fine. That was hard racing. They deemed it fair racing.
Yeah.
And I think if lots of those incidents last season weren't given penalties, this one definitely shouldn't be. So I'm glad they've stuck with the precedent. I think it gave the fans a very big cheer when Hamilton went through, and that fight in general with all 5 of those cars at the time was insane. So very much enjoyed that one. And as I say, I think Checo's second place, clawing back points in the championship. What a day he had. And yeah, really strong drive.
I mean, maybe if Leclerc had gone wide at Stowe and got back ahead of Perez and nothing else happened, maybe they'd have taken action then. Or if Perez had cut the corner and passed Leclerc and disappeared, passed Leclerc and stayed ahead of Hamilton and disappeared, maybe they would have taken different action. It's sort of one or the other incident rather than both together. Yeah. I feel like maybe. I doubt we'll get an explanation. It'd be lovely if they did. To his credit, Michael Massey did sometimes come out and say, this is why I made this decision if it was a controversial one. Obviously, he didn't after his most controversial one, but he did come out, we saw it a few times, this is why I did this. So it would be nice if they explained it, but it might have been a 50-50. And they just said, well, Charles kept his position there. Perez done this. The only thing I would say is that maybe graze the area a bit is that, yes, Perez lost out to Hamilton, but he did still stay ahead of Leclerc. So I don't know, but let him race. Just as long as they're not taking a mickey like IndyCar do. At turn 19, is it, in Kota? As long as I'm not taking a mickey like that, it's absolutely fine. Apologies, by the way. My super chats have just refreshed and loaded in, and I've missed quite a few, or I've missed 3, so apologies. So first things first, thank you very much, as always, to Charles Edward Cheese for your incredible contribution to the channel. Thank you for your support. Absolutely amazing. Says, bi-weekly Quiddles alert. Amazing Grand Prix the whole weekend, really. Silverstone never disappointing. So thank you so much, mate. Glad you enjoyed the Grand Prix. I think pretty much everyone did. And of course, you guys know what to do. We've got nearly 1,400 watching, nearly 200 likes. Let's get that to 500 likes for Charles Edward Cheese by the end of the stream. So smash a like, as the kids would say. Greatly appreciated. Thank you to Emily as well. Says, Sean, you didn't jinx Mick this weekend. One of the first times I've not said points for Haas, and Mick ends up P8 and Kevin Magnussen P10. So if you're a Haas fan, thinking of you a little bit, Dan, but also I think Tommy as well, who's one of the channel OGs in the comments section. He'll be pretty happy with this weekend. So I'll not predict any good things for Haas anymore, and maybe they'll keep doing well this season. And thank you very much to, is it Ragin or Rajin? Thank you for your contribution. Says, Ferrari are not going to fight for a championship for too long with such decisions. Watching it live, I was shouting to bring them both in the pits. The guy at the pit wall are paid for exactly that. Thank you so much. And I tend to agree. Like Space said, we're sat at home screaming it. Why are the Ferrari strategists not? But at the same time, we're not under that pressure, are we? So I guess that's the way to look at it. But thank you so much for all your super chats so far. Let's talk about Verstappen. Obviously, we'll talk more about Perez and co when we get to the Q&A. I'm sure there's bits we've missed that you'd like us to address. But Max Verstappen, it was all looking rather good, wasn't it, Dan, as he cruised past Carlos Sainz after the Spaniard had got it all wrong on the exit of Beckett's, or the final part of Beckett's. I wrote down, thought it was game over, thought it was done. And then he got damage to his car. And now, wide at Copse, I think Christian Horner was saying wide at Copse. I might have got that wrong. I was kind of half listening while I was setting the stream up, and picked up some debris which damaged his floor, and over the race that progressively got worse. Originally we thought it was a puncture, but over time it progressively got worse, and he just could not handle the car. He had no grip. You could see it when he was being followed by the cars with onboards. He was really struggling to keep that car going. So to get that back to P7, it's not a win in the way that Max Verstappen wants it to be a win, but I think P7, considering his car was really, I'm pretty sure Christian Horner said about half the downforce down. Now, we know how Christian likes to exaggerate, so we'll take that as maybe 25% or something like that, half of the half. But, if it is half down on downforce, then he's done a fantastic job to pick up 7th place. Really exciting scrap again with Mick Schumacher. Of course, we had it in Hungary last year, didn't we? Mick versus Max. So we got another one today. Did put the squeeze on Mick on the exit, but it's borderline again, isn't it? But the stewards decided not to take any action on that one, so he got his 7th place and Mick got P8. I'm just looking for my notes, really. It is basically all about his problems with the car, really struggling. And we didn't end up seeing a lot of him because he just kind of ended up fighting with the Astons and the Haases, and that's not where he wants to be, obviously. But do you see what I'm getting at? It's not a win. It's nowhere near a win, but it's a good bit of damage limitation given the state his car was in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't really matter what percentage it was. I mean, it was very visible that that was a difficult car to drive. I mean, he was lifting so much through Maggots and Beckett's, and at the start of the race, he wasn't doing it flat, but it wasn't far off. So it was a visible difference in that car, and we all know how quick Verstappen is, and in those early stages, I mean, he is just a different animal this season. Is Max Verstappen. He was great last season, but this year, though quali's not working out, he always turns it around off the start. And that very first race start, he was on it straight away. This race start, I mean, Sainz pushed him right up against the wall, and still Verstappen tried his best to get past him. He was slightly fortunate when Sainz made that mistake to get past him. But like you say, I think he was in a position at that point of the race where if he didn't pick up the damage, he probably would have controlled it and had a really comfortable victory. Damage, though, did cost him that race victory today. And I think to come away with points is a bit of a miracle. I was convinced he was done. I thought when he made that first stop and came back out and had the likes of, I think it was Ocon and Latifi at one point closing down. I mean, Latifi was 1 second behind Max Verstappen at a certain point of this race. And it was that moment where I thought, yeah, they can't keep going. It's not going to work. But somehow he kept on going. And even on that restart on the softs, I thought he'd get swallowed up. I thought with that damage he was carrying, that's such a difficult car to drive from the looks of it. Surely he's going to go backwards. And yet he fended off some positions, I think made a position as well in front of someone. So 7th place, very hard fighting at the end. Again, I'm not a big fan of pushing drivers off the track in the style Verstappen does, but it's been allowed. It's fine. So we've got to roll with it. Schumacher, that first incident at Luffield, I was really on the edge of my seat. I wasn't too comfortable with that one, but I loved it in that final corner where Schumi tried to go down the inside and Max just left him enough room. That was a really great fight. And from two drivers we don't often see fight. As you said, Hungary last season was great, but I think this season with Schumacher and Verstappen, it was even better. So very much deserved point from Max. And we've seen already this year Ferrari have several DNFs. Even Verstappen's had a few mechanical failures as well. And it's days like today where you've not been handed the luck, you've got issues, still scoring points, 6 points. That's quite a big chunk. And Leclerc only scored 12. That's only a 6-point swing in Leclerc's favour, which when you think of their contrasting fortunes today, that is pretty insane. So fair play to Max, really strong drive, everything considered.
I think you'll see this as a one that got away in many ways because he was so quick, wasn't he, in practice? And in the wet, he looked really, really quick. And I think Martin Brundle said that it just felt like if he got out front, that was going to be it. So he's going to feel a little bit like it got away. But at the same time, I said it earlier when I was talking about Charles, didn't I? When I was talking about Sainz's pressure, yes, Sainz looked into Verstappen getting that damage, but it wasn't Sainz that ran the Red Bull wide. It was Verstappen. So you can probably put that down as a bit of an error in some ways. But then at the same time, he's probably been running wide at that corner all weekend like that, and it's been fine. So it's these fine margins in F1, isn't it? And I bet the damage is like nothing to look at for us idiots, Dan, who have got no idea what we're looking at. I bet it looks like absolutely nothing, and it's completely destroyed his afternoon. But like I said, only a 6-point swing, which is quite amazing, really, isn't it? So definitely some good damage limitation there. I've not got much else on it because it was all about that for Max, really. Did enjoy his little fight with Ocon. That's always enjoyable when those two come together, not literally, on track as well. Seb Vettel, we'll talk about him a bit later. He managed to jump or get past Verstappen as well. But I think the move at the end with Schumacher, it is borderline, isn't it? You're shoving people off track, a bit like, Leclerc going off track and Perez cutting the corner, but the stewards, maybe you're right. Maybe they have set a precedent, and that's it now. That's what they're going to stick with. I must admit that when you look at the race as a whole, a lot of cars beyond white lines and all over the place, so maybe the stewards just didn't want to manage track limits this weekend. I don't know, but hopefully, set a precedent. But if that happens in Austria, they've got to let it go. Otherwise, it's just going to cause chaos. I guess what I'd say if I were in charge of the rules, which is a terrifying thought, I know, is, that's okay, but just don't take the piss with it. Do you know what I mean? Don't be ridiculous with it. Just, that's okay, but you can't be going much more than that. I don't know. the white lines define the racetrack. That's going to be the argument, isn't it, at the end of the day? I mean, Max is still top of the championship, still looking good at the top of the championship as well. So, Chevron McBean, fantastic name. Thank you for your super chat. Says, was I the only one who was a nervous wreck when I saw Max and Mick fighting at the end of the race? Max definitely went over the limit with the defending, but I'm happy to see Mick not simply staying back to bring the car home. It's always nice to see Mick fighting, or anybody fighting who's normally a little bit further down. No disrespect to him, of course, but yeah, you said you're quite nervous, Dan, so I think a few people will agree that it was a bit of a nervy moment, but, you know, it's points. I think Mick just needed to get the points this weekend, but we'll talk about him a little bit later. Lewis Hamilton, we'll do Mercedes now, and then we'll move on to the rest of the field, but Lewis Hamilton, P3 today. A weird one, actually, because post-race seemed a little bit disappointed, because I think Mercedes feel he had the pace in that car to win today, and I'd be inclined to say maybe not outright, but with the way that the race played out, you know, if the race had stayed a standard Grand Prix, maybe not, but with the way the race played out, the late safety car, the pit stop, maybe had a shot at this one, and it was that time that was lost behind Leclerc and Perez that cost him today. I mean, his final lap was a 1:30.5, which was a second quicker than Carlos Sainz. And obviously Sainz might not have been pushing quite as hard in that final lap, but that is quite the lap. So I think he was in this, and I think there was an air of disappointment that he didn't get the win, but he's got to be happy to be up on that podium in front of his home crowd. And obviously it's been a difficult start to the season. Is that his first podium since Bahrain?
Last weekend, mate. Montreal.
Of course it is. Oh my God. Is that, hang on, let's rewind. Is that his first podium since the last race?
I think it is, mate. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's incredible.
Memory.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right, chat. Just remember to clip that one.
Remember, Alpine had a faultless weekend.
I agree with you, though. Overall, I agree with you. Not your silly statements about Bahrain and Montreal. I understand the disappointment, because this was clearly their best chance this season to win a race, and I think there was a big opportunity to get that victory today. I would say, I'm not going to blame the fact he didn't get it on this, but I think getting caught behind Norris really early on and having to catch up with the two Ferraris didn't help. I think it was about 5 seconds away from the two Ferraris and Verstappen.
He had a great first start, didn't he?
Yeah, brilliant first start, and was one of those that was kind of unlucky, if you want to call it that they changed it back to the original grid. So to then have that incredible start and then on the second one lose places, probably wasn't too happy about it. But yeah, I think if he was able to pass Norris a little bit sooner, that would have helped him massively. I think Mercedes proving why they've won so many championships today by recognizing they could go that bit longer, they could eke out those medium tyres. You know, I love an overcut. Don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, but I do love an overcut. And I think without the safety car, it would have been difficult for him to catch the two Ferraris. But I think that probably would have worked. Even with that safety car timing, though, he was still in the hunt. And I think that's where the disappointment comes from, is that Sainz was able to pass Leclerc and Hamilton wasn't able to switch on those tyres quite as quickly as Perez. And as you mentioned, it was that fight with Leclerc and Perez that really cost him that victory today. But then go back a few weekends, if you'd have told him before Montreal, because he got a podium there, by the way, if you'd have told him he'd get a podium in Canada, a podium in Silverstone, I think he would have been over the moon with those two results. And I think if you'd have told him, even last time out in Montreal, if you'd have told him, look, you're going to be as quick as those two Ferraris in the race and you're going to have a chance, he's going to take that all day long. We've seen with Merc, it's been a bit up and down this year when it comes to race pace and quali pace. And I'm still questioning whether this is a full season thing that they're going to be fighting. But either way, compare this weekend to the start of the season and that car is better. So there is progress there. There was a chance of victory today, and overall he can be very, very proud of that. And he certainly put on a show at Silverstone. And you know what? That's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I tell you what, some nice fights as well. I mean, throughout the field, not just Hamilton, but who was it around? Oh, I wrote it in a tweet, I think. Was it Leclerc around the outside of Hamilton at Luffield, and then Hamilton ran the outside of Leclerc at Luffield. Was a nice move. Mm-hmm. I know that the better soft tyres, and then Leclerc casually around the outside of Copse on Lewis Hamilton. You think, what have you guys been eating? What is all you? This is a race. What's happening? But just absolutely brilliant to watch. And again, not just Hamilton and Leclerc, but so many great battles through the field. And it's just edge of your seat stuff. There were little bits of the race that went a little bit flat, but that's a Formula One race. That's going to happen all the time. But it just always picked up, and there was always something going on, and it was so much fun. But, you know, I don't know how Leclerc had that. You know, Leclerc's on these tyres that are much older. They're hard tyres, and he somehow, and if you look at the replay, you've got Hamilton and Leclerc. There's probably inches, but it looks like millimetres between them at Cops. You're thinking, oh no, not again. Just absolutely incredible move from Leclerc. A great move at Luffield from Hamilton as well. But I think he's got to be pretty happy with that deep down inside. Like you say, I think bit of frustration that it wasn't the win. I think he could have challenged. I mean, we'll never know with the tyres, of course. That was the intriguing strategy bit, wasn't it? Were his hards going to be much better than Leclerc's come the end of the race? What was going to be the outcome there? Because he ran pretty long, 34 laps on the hard tyres. Worth mentioning as well, so the Lewis Hamilton fanboys don't come for me, it is worth mentioning as well, he did have a slow pit stop, 4.3 seconds. I'm not sure why, because all the wheels look to be on, but it seems to be quite slow getting away. Maybe the traffic light is a little bit slow. Letting him go 4.3 seconds. He was only 2.4 behind Perez. So that maybe you're looking at a 2.5 second stop. That's a pretty close one at the end there. So yeah, that's all ifs and buts. But I tend to agree with you, Dan. If you'd offered him Canada podium, which apparently he had, I forgot, and Silverstone podium, I think he'd have been very, very happy to take that, which I think shows a lot of where Mercedes are at the moment. But I've seen Bill, in fact, he's just popped in the super chat. Thank you very much, Bill. Said last week, I'm never going to forget this, that he thinks Mercedes might be able to pip Ferrari. 61 points behind, it's far from impossible. So this consistency we saw from George Russell and Lewis Hamilton now getting onto Mercedes on top of the car, and Lewis Hamilton now getting the best out of it as well, is the best way to put that one. Maybe they could, but I think the big test is going to be Austria. When we get to a more bumpy track, we're going to know if Mercedes are back in this or whether this is just a little bit like Spain, a bit track specific. I'm hoping they're back in it because I quite fancy the remaining 11 races with a 3-team fight at the front. Oh, my mouth's watering at the prospect.
It seems like it, doesn't it? I mean, I feel we didn't really get to see the full potential of Red Bull this weekend. I mean, Perez second, of course, is a great result. And Max, we saw in the early stages kind of what he would have been able to do. But at the same time, you're right. It seems to be ebbing and flowing every single weekend. And 3 teams at the front. I feel it's more than 11 races, right? Or am I the one being silly there? Either way, more than 10 races with 3 teams
12,
seeming
mate.
to be in the mix. Yeah, exactly.
I cannot count today, can I?
It's all right. Sorry. I'm not trying to out you at every single comment today, but stop saying silly things, I guess.
I mean, I've built an entire channel on saying silly things, so that's not going to happen, is it?
True, exactly. But 3 teams at the front, 6 drivers. I mean, it's still all to play for, which is awesome at this part of the season.
My notes are wrong. I've read my notes wrong. Of course, he pitted before the safety car first time, didn't he? So that slow stop is, as has been pointed out in chat by a couple of people, irrelevant because the safety car wiped that out. Sorry, I was reading my notes completely wrong. I got muddled up. So he pitted. That was his slow stop. Then he pitted again on the safety car, which wasn't a slow stop, and it's irrelevant. So
I don't know. I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't count it as irrelevant because, I mean, it was an extra 2 seconds and very easily he could have been in front of Ricciardo and in the mix with the 2 Ferraris from pretty much the word go.
Ricciardo?
Yeah, because, so it was the 2 Ferraris and then unfortunately Danny Rick had been lapped but was like in between them.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Ricciardo fans, but that's where we're at this season. So I don't think it's irrelevant. I think Hamilton would have been closer. I think irrelevant's a bit harsh. He would have been in the mix, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll take that. I will accept that as being wrong, but also maybe a little bit right. It doesn't happen very often. George Russell. Now, of course, we're going to talk about the first corner incident as we go through, and we'll talk about a bit more as well a little bit later. I should have read Bill's super chat. Thank you, sir. What a fantastic race. Is it okay to admit I was cheering on Mick over Max at the end? Waffle on. Thank you very much, Bill. I think a lot of people were cheering for Mick at the end, but so glad to see him get those points. Mick at the end, not Mix. Mick at the end. So glad he got those points as well. And his mum was in the paddock as well, which was quite a nice moment. So thank you very much for your super chat there, Bill. George Russell, yes, we'll talk about it as we go, but obviously I'll talk about them when we get to Zhou for the incident, but involved in that incident, sort of squeezing Gasly. I don't know. I need to see some more angles of it. I'm really not sure. Gasly gets sandwiched as contact. Russell loses the car, goes into Zhou. We know what happens after that. I do want to start though with and the pictures there on screen with a massive shout out and kudos to George. He could have potentially tried to drag that car back to the pits, but his first reaction was to stop the car, get out and check that Zhou was okay, because that was a horrible accident. So massive shout out to George for that one. We've seen, of course, before in F1 history with worse situations, obviously, but great to see George do that one. But that was it for his race. Bit of frustration from his side of view. He felt like if he could get back in the car, get it started, he could get it back to the pits, and then could have started the Grand Prix, but when he came back to the car, apparently it was up on a low loader, and that was game over, because the rules are pretty clear that if you receive assistance from a marshal to get your car back to the pit lane, or from the marshals to get a car back to the pit lane, then you can't restart the race. Gone are the days of the old T cars that we used to see when we got a red flag on the opening lap, hop in the spare car, race your teammate back if two you're involved, and getting that one. But yeah, a little bit frustrated by that one. But in some ways, I think the racer, should he have dragged the car back to the pits? But as a human being, without sounding like a right soppy sod, but as a human being, it's nice to see him hop out the car and check on a fellow driver. But that was it for George's race. Really, that was game over.
Yeah, I feel honorary driver of the day for George Russell for doing that, because he definitely didn't need to. I think when you see the state that Esteban Ocon's car was in, and he was able to drag it back to the pit lane, maybe George would have been able to do the same. But I think most people would agree he did the right thing in that particular situation. I don't want to say the start line incident was his fault, because so many cars had awful starts, and yes, he squeezed Gasly a little bit, but there was so much going on. It's unfortunately sometimes one of those incidents that happens in lap one, turn one, at a track like this where it's just a high speed turn one. So yeah, I can't really add much more on George's race, but he did do the right thing. He's had a great season so far. That top 5 points finish graphic is going to come to an end, which is slightly sad, but hey, not much he could have done today. So yeah, I can't really add much more on George.
No, we'll talk more about the incident later. The only thing I will maybe ask chat and ask you as well, I've seen some people on Twitter who are quite adamant that George should get some kind of penalty for that. They feel that was a squeeze. The stewards looked at it. They said no. I mean, it's a start of a race. It's a starting grid. There's cars all over the place. You've got George to the right. You've got Pierre in the middle. You've got who was on the outside?
Bottas, maybe?
I'm trying to have a quick check in my notes, actually. I did write on my first page. Chat will get there before me. I'm trying to race them. I'm trying to race chat to do this one. It was Zhou, wasn't it? Oh my God. Of course it was Zhou.
Yeah.
It was Zhou who was on the outside. Bit of a squeeze on Gasly. The contact happens as Gasly or at least appears to back out of it. Gasly looks like he's trying to back out of it, and that was kind of where the accident came from. But I think a few people think that's a penalty for George. I'm not. I think if that's just a bit of contact and Zhou gets a puncture, I don't think anybody even suggests that's a penalty. I think because of the severity of the accident, people are saying that should have been a penalty for somebody. But I think, again, sorry to bring his name up, but as Michael Massey would say, they don't punish the consequences. They punish the action, and that's not punished most of the time, and it's irrelevant in some ways how big the accident is. So I think that'd be really harsh on George. If that happens on a start-finish straight, 3 abreast, and he puts a proper squeeze on lap 25, then yeah. But I think at the start, that'd be really harsh.
Yeah, and I think as well in the context, I mean, it's very easy when you're slowing things down to hyper-analyze those kind of incidents and say he has squeezed Gasly, but at the same time, Latifi came through the middle of both of them, and George tried to close the door behind Latifi. So, I mean, I'm not trying to excuse him. You should always be looking in your mirrors, but at the same time, I think he was aware he had a bad start. Zhou had a bad start, and there was a lot going on. It's again, I don't want to just echo what you've said, but at the same time, if you're going to portion blame to anyone, I think you would say Russell, but that's not enough for a penalty, because any other track in the world where it's not a flat out turn one, that's going to be a bit of contact between two cars, maybe a puncture, and you're right, no one's going to call for a penalty. So we shouldn't, in theory, look at the severity of the resulting crash at the end for a penalty. So, yeah, I'm not sure George should get a penalty for that one. And he's aware what happens, and he did the right thing in the aftermath of it. So, yeah, I'm okay to say no penalty for that.
See, John T makes a good point, but I'd counter it. He says, how is it any different to Spa 2012, an unnecessary squeeze leading to a massive injury-threatening accident? I sort of agree, but at the same time, sorry, Dan, it's not because you're here, mate. Grosjean was an absolute dickhead that day, and that squeeze was far more than what Russell did. He came right across and absolutely was completely out of control. George is just kind of... I'll tell you what it's similar to, with worse consequences, obviously. It's similar to Vettel, Raikkonen and Verstappen in Singapore, but even then less of a squeeze, if that makes sense, because Gasly is trying to get out of it, and Russell isn't coming across quite as aggressively as Vettel did, and I don't think he was as aggressive as Grosjean. And as I said already, I think if that results in a puncture or just a little bit of contact or front wing damage, the stewards don't even consider looking at it. But because it's such a because of the consequences, which they don't look at, you do look at it, well, somebody's surely got to be penalised for that one. But again, the FIA don't look at the consequences or what happens after an accident. They look at the actual incident itself, and that's why they've come to that decision. So it's I feel it would have been harsh on George, but it's another one of those, weirdly, that, and I think I've said this before, that we do get them in F1 where sometimes you go, well, I think that'd be harsh, but then if he did get a penalty, you'd go, oh, could be fair enough, actually. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those where it's so borderline to me that if he gets a penalty, I'm not up in arms about it, but if he doesn't, I'm not up in arms about it. So, yeah, difficult. I think the most important thing from it all is just, I'll tell you what, chat then. Yes or no, penalty for George Russell is what we'll throw at you for that one, and see what you guys. I'm not sold that needs to be a penalty, and I think people are wanting one or feel it should have been one more because of what happened afterwards. A lot of drivers involved though. We've got Albon precautionary checks in hospital. You know, Zhou very, very lucky. Or not lucky, just very, very lucky that FIA put some effort into safety these days, apart from sausage curbs. But see, I'm not even going to do... I could have done a poll, but I'm not even going to. Resoundingly no. A few people saying yes. I mean, Dell says yes. Raul says yes. Mario says yes. Penalty for Kathos. RRTV says yes. Mostly no. Robert says penalty. KMS Boss says he got swamped, which is kind of what I'm getting at the start, isn't it? That's what it is. It's just 20 cars into one corner. There's going to be contact, but I would say, see, Free says at fault, no penalty. Again, I think if that happens on lap 25, then it probably is a penalty and probably should be a penalty. But at the start, with 20 cars going into one corner, I wasn't going to talk about the incident until a bit later, but here we are. I think if you've got 20 cars going into one corner, start of a race, all over the place, you can get, I don't know.
And if it's a sudden change of direction as well, I mean, I think we change our mind, but it is very gradual. He's not suddenly jinked the steering wheel to the left. He is coming across. So it's not a deliberate manoeuvre from George.
Well, it is in the sense that he's coming across to take his line. He's not accidentally turned left. But I know what you mean. He's not deliberately done it to swipe Gasly.
Yeah, he's not trying to block Gasly. But then, the counter-argument would be he should be aware that a driver is there.
Raul says, if it's Latifi, is it a penalty, yes or no? Well, no, because that's not a penalty for Russell, so it wouldn't be a penalty for Latifi. I think I take the point that's tried to be made, but I don't care which driver it is. I don't think that. But Jonty's saying he's seen the onboard, and he says it's 100% a penalty for him. So I haven't seen the onboard, honestly. I was too busy making notes and sorting things out over here. But yeah, I'll try and find it later and have a look. But I'm at the moment, I'd say no penalty. And I think when you get a grey area as well, I think when you get into a point where you're sort of umming and ahhing, I don't think you can give a penalty. Because then you're debating, is it a racing incident? And I think most of the time you could argue, if what we're trying to say, if you look at an incident and you're going, oh, I don't know whose fault that is, it feels like a racing incident or a start line incident, or no, I'm not sure. I think then you've got to sort of err on the side of not giving a penalty, because then I don't know. I know. Leave me alone. I'm going to move on from Russell. We were going to talk about Peugeot. We've got to talk about Peugeot as well. So we'll come back to this one, absolutely. But nothing else to add on him, absolutely, because it was basically game over, wasn't it, for him? I'll just pause for a second, have a mouthful of water. Let's have a look then. Let's move on to Alpine, McLaren, and Haas, I believe. Yes, indeed. So Fernando Alonso, P5. Don't ask me how he got there. I have no idea. Fernando Alonso, P5 today. Well, I'll tell you how he did, because he's Fernando Alonso. 1 second off Charles Leclerc in the end. Obviously, the soft tyres at the end really, really helping Fernando Alonso, which is... there was a moment, Dan, I'll be honest, before I get to my notes on him. There was a moment when I saw all that going on with Leclerc and Perez and Hamilton. And we saw Hamilton nick those 2 positions, didn't we, in the final corner when they were battling. That had Fernando Alonso cheeky 3-car overtake written all over it, didn't it? And I was going, oh, go on, Fernando. Go on, nick the podium, mate. So, really great result for him. 5th place today. I can't remember where he started, but he didn't start particularly high up. But all I've got in my notes for Fernando, because it's just one of those days where he's quietly gone about Fernandoing, which is the only way I could describe it, is that he pitted under the safety car on lap 40 for the soft tyres. But I assume he pitted before that. I'm not sure. I mean, you'll know, Dan, because you love running long, so you'll know about that one. Have a look on Twitter in a minute. But just a great result for Fernando in a race that I don't recall seeing an awful lot of him. But I think there was so much action going on. I don't think TV direction was at its best again today. It certainly wasn't yesterday. And I think a lot of focus was rightly on the front, so we didn't maybe get to see quite as much of Alonso's race as we'd like. But I'm looking forward to the onboards that tend to come out later in the week, because I bet there's a few spicy overtakes in there from the legend. Let's call him a legend. Why not?
See, I would love to share your optimism on this one, but from my understanding, and I hope I'm wrong, I feel it was a bit of a snoozer for Alonso, which isn't a bad thing, only because, from my understanding, I think he started 7th, got a position because of Verstappen, and then was kind of in this weird no man's land where he wasn't quite on the pace of Norris. But then with that safety car, McLaren did this weird thing where they didn't stop Norris and then they did. So Alonso was in front. So I think, from my understanding, that was his main race. And then, that lovely juicy part at the end where he was in that fight with Perez, Leclerc, Hamilton, and even with Norris behind. I thought the same as you. I was like, this reeks of Alonso goatedness. This is the kind of thing where he, like you say, does a 3-car overtake around the outside of Copse and then gets another couple more through Beckett's. It just stinks of Alonso madness. And I feel we almost had it with Alonso and Hamilton at one stage, but in reality, that Alpine isn't quite as quick as those other cars, so it makes sense he wasn't quite able to do it. But even still, wasn't too far off at the checkered flag. I think 1 second behind Leclerc at the end of the race. So again, it's one of those drives where it may have been a slow one, but to come away with 5th place, which I believe is his best race of the season, his best finish. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong.
Had a podium in Canada, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Won the race, actually. I think that's his best result of the season, and big chunk of points. I think he takes that all day long. And Alpine, I don't think they were as quick as McLaren this weekend, but it seems to be the team they're fighting this year, and he will take that. Yeah, I very much enjoyed that scrap at the end with Fernando.
We'll talk about McLaren in a minute, but I do wonder, I think there was a little error in there from their safety car pit stop for Lando Norris. I think they were a bit late calling him in, a lap later than maybe they should or could have done. I don't know where he was on the track when the safety car came out, because Alonso jumped him through that. So maybe there's something to be said there. But 9.5 seconds off the lead. So just Fernandoing, like I say. But nothing against Fernando. I've just got no notes because maybe he did have a quiet race, like you say, Dan. But that's what these experienced drivers do in chaotic races, isn't it? They just keep the head down, stay out of trouble, pit when they need to pit, make the overtakes they need to overtake, and then, oh, look at me, I'm P5. It's just what experience does. So I'll leave it at that, Fernando. I'm not going to keep rabbiting on. Esteban Ocon. Ocon was looking really good, actually, as well today. I think he retired from P8, so he was on for points too. Slowed just before, I think. It was around Luffield. He started to slow down. And then stopped on the national straight. Apparently that was a fuel pump issue. I've not seen any more from the team just yet. Not had the press release through either. So we'll stick with fuel pump issue for now. And that's, I mean, he just seems to be racing quite nicely, which is quite amazing, really, because looking at the damage on his car, I didn't give him a hope in hell of that restart. After that first corner incident where he got clattered by Albon, I think, didn't he? who was out of control. Not Albon's fault, of course. He was shunted by Vettel, but he was out of control and he got clattered by him. And you look at the damage on that Alpine, you're going, it's race over, mate. So to be that far in the race, be racing in P8, to be battling with Verstappen. All right, Verstappen had damage, but to be battling with Verstappen was great to see as well. So just disappointing you couldn't convert that into points today, but that's F1, isn't it, with reliability? It's going to happen. Just quickly as well, Black Hawk So, who likes to keep an eye on Ted's notebook for me. Thank you very much, mate. Was just saying that apparently Verstappen had a hole in his floor. And of course, with ground effects, that's going to stop ground effects doing what ground effects is supposed to do. So that'll be why that one was. But what do you want to say on Ocon, Dan? I've got overtake on Verstappen on lap 36 at Stowe. Did Verstappen come back at him and got him back,
yes,
I think, because he was slowing? But I think Ocon could have been right up there with Alonso today without that reliability problem. He was looking very good.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I said something similar last time out. I think Ocon's doing a really solid job this year. I mean, even with Alonso's 5th place today, Ocon is still comfortably in front of him in terms of points finishes and the point standings. So he's been going about his business quite nicely this year, Ocon. And I think the start of this race to actually be back in it by the time we restarted after the red flag, that's a miracle in itself, that he was able to drag that car back around to the pit lane and get going again. So to end it in the way he did, it's not ideal, of course, but the fact he even got to race at all this afternoon at Silverstone is a miracle. So yeah, I think in terms of his own performance, not too bad with everything considered.
Thank you to Robert for your super chats, as I thought it was bloody impressive that Alpine got Ocon's car back into the race after that initial crash. That front right wheel was all but hanging by a thread. Kudos to their mechanics. Absolutely. Thank you for your super chat. And absolutely agree. I mean, you look at these mechanics, though, to be fair, they amaze me all the time. I mean, Verstappen at Hungary, was it last year or the year before, where they'd made changes that should have taken 12 weeks, but they did it in 20 minutes or whatever it was. It was so impressive what these mechanics can do, these engineers can do. So great job to get that car out for the race, because like I said, I looked at that and I thought that was game over. To be honest, didn't see that one going again. Just looking at chat, see if anyone said anything that we've missed on Ocon. Again, as always, we'll get to some Q&A in a bit, and if we've missed something, we can have a mention on it. KMS Boss wants to know about Alex Albon. I've not heard any more news. He was taken to, I think, Coventry Hospital for some precautionary checks, so hopefully all okay. Joe is okay, which is incredible, really, isn't it? But that's the most important thing. But he was out the car, so hopefully all good. He's probably triggered a G-meet. I'd imagine he's quite stiff, because he got shunted. Well, I mean, Albon got shunted a few times, didn't he, to be fair? He got hit Vettel, Tsunoda and Ocon. So he's probably a bit bruised, bless him. So hopefully he'll be all right for next week. But if I get anything when we're on the stream, because Williams' press release should come through soon, I'll let you know what they say, if there's anything in there. So let's roll on to... Who have we got? Lando Norris and McLaren. So Norris, really nice and racy today. Good qualifying yesterday. Loving the crowd, as you can understand. I mean, I'm still grumpy I'm not there, but, you know, it's great to talk to you guys, so I'm happy. It's okay. Pitted lap 35 for the Haas. That was to respond to Alonso at the time, I think, and managed to stay just ahead of him. But then he pitted under the safety car. I think, like I said, it feels like it was a lap too late. Obviously, I've not watched any highlights or anything back, so I don't know. But it feels like it was a lap later than it needed to be. I think the safety car, a lot of people pitted on lap 40. I'm just going to double check actually with Pirelli, see if their graphic, I think it should be out by now. It's usually out pretty quickly after the race, and that should tell us whether he went a lap longer, just to confirm it. So a lot of people pitted under the safety car at the end of lap 39, and yeah, Norris went on lap 40, so he did go 1 too late, which I think could have potentially cost him the position to Alonso. But under safety car, Alonso shouldn't have been steaming around anyway, should he? So I don't know if that was it. So, yeah, Alonso was lap 39. Norris lap 40, so maybe that's cost him a position, I guess is what I'm getting at. And Daniel Ricciardo, we'll do McLaren as one, because really, with all due respect to Danny Rick, there's only really Norris to talk about, because I don't remember seeing a thing of Daniel Ricciardo. Obviously, you saw him being lapped, basically, Dan, without sounding awful. That's what you saw of him, but didn't see much of him. P13 in the end, 3 tenths behind Latifi. Just didn't seem to do an awful lot to Danny Rick, and that's really bloody disappointing. Again, I was hoping he was going to start kicking on, because he was starting to perform, wasn't he? Starting to see a little bit more of the old Danny Rick. Not quite back to the old Danny Rick, but a bit more of him. And it's just a bit of a disappointing day, disappointing weekend, I guess, overall, and bested by his teammate again.
Yeah, and it's weird because this was one of the circuits that 12 months ago he was actually pretty close to Lando Norris. I think fourth and fifth or fifth and sixth, something like that for the two McLaren boys. And all day long they spent following each other. And yes, quali yesterday was in the wet. Latifi got into Q3, so what really was qualifying yesterday. So I can allow a bit of leeway for that. But today, with all the chaos going on, and it seems, I mean, whether it comes out in press releases this evening, whatever, I'm interested to see about this one. But it seems like he got away without incident in that big crash at turn one. And on the restart, it never really looked like he was able to fight his way through the field and was in the group at the back with the two Haas cars, and even the Aston Martins were able to get in front of him, which is, I don't know. I just feel that's really, really odd, unless something happened where he had damage to his floor or something like Verstappen. And you're right, you mentioned it earlier that TV direction, as always, wasn't quite on point today. And maybe we've missed something, but to come away with a result where at that safety car at the end, it was only Ricardo and Sonoda who were lapped and had to unlap themselves. Yuki had a crazy race, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a moment. But Danny Rick, I didn't see anything. So I'm not sure why he was so far back. I am interested to see because I feel there's got to be something. But like you say, on the other side of the garage, it was a good day for Lando Norris and was in front of Hamilton in those early stages and was running a quiet race, but a good one for the most of it. And at the end was in the fight with Alonso and would have been there to pick up the pieces if anything happened in front. So yeah, good day for Norris. It's points again. McLaren are definitely a team this year that, like Mercedes, one weekend are on it, one weekend are absolutely not. And it seems recently, I don't know, it seems they found a bit more consistency. But again, Danny Rick, I feel needs to do a little bit better now because we're a year and a half in and this project just isn't working for whatever reason. And particularly today, I don't know what went wrong, but it doesn't seem like much went right.
A couple of people in chat just making some points on Danny Rick. Ricardo was put on the softs when everyone was on hards and mediums. And where's that one gone? I just saw it. Danny Rick had a problem with his DRS and probably his rear wing was damaged from the start. So thank you very much. So they're well worth a mention. But yeah, I think Danny Rick under a bit of pressure because it'd be bad for McLaren. But I think from his point of view, it wouldn't be so bad if he was 13th today and Norris was 12th. You know, so it's this clearly not quite right with this car. He does get unlucky at times, to be fair. And if it is true that he had the DRS issue and rear wing damage potentially, then that's going to explain some of it. But it's just quite a gulf between the two of them. But that's a conversation for another stream or video, really. Talking about silly season, which we need to do at some point because that's always good fun. But I hope it's not going to end up being the end of him at McLaren. Because to be honest, if McLaren turned around and said bye at the end of this year, I don't honestly see where he goes, which is my concern. But like I said, that's a conversation for another day. I'm not making excuses for him, Richard. I'm just reading what's in chat and talking about the possibilities for Ricardo. But hopefully he can turn this around. I'm just... yeah. I thought there's a driver in there. But I could say that for most of the drivers on the grid, couldn't I? There's a driver in there somewhere, but it's the gulf to Norris. As actually, to be fair, Richard says the qualifying gap is pretty substantial. It's a big gap in the racing and the points now as well. So McLaren won't put up for that for long. Let's not get into that though. Haas, we'll round off this bit with them. You're the Haas fan, Dan. Are you pretty happy with this one? K-Mag, who I've got no notes for some reason, P10 today, got himself a point on the board, but Mick Schumacher finally got himself in the points after so much, Canada, he could have been up there after a great qualifying, then mechanical problems. He's been running in the points before and it's all gone wrong. Absolutely so happy for him. Overtake on Latifi on lap 33 for P10, which is when I first really looked at him and went, he could get a point today. So that's why I wrote that one down. He pitted under the safety car as well on lap 39. So obviously took advantage of that one. But I'm just really pleased to see him up there because he's a driver just coming off Ricardo, talking about drivers under pressure. He's another one under pressure. And this is something that hopefully might lift. I know one swallow doesn't make a summer, but you have to remember the bad luck he had in Canada in particular, where he could have scored points as well. But it might lift a little bit of pressure off him now. And maybe this can be... I think they made the point on Sky. Maybe this can be the catalyst for him to go on and start getting more consistent points. Not every race, because Magnussen's not scoring every race, but just to be picking up a few more in the way of points over the next few weeks, and maybe he can cling on to that seat. I'd like to see him doing it regularly rather than just every now and again, but got to look at the positive today, and he's up there. And a great fight with Max, as we've already talked about as well.
Yeah, to say I'm happy would be a slight understatement, I think. He should have got points last weekend, Mick, and today I don't want to say drove his socks off, because I think that Haas car wasn't brilliant this weekend. I think this is probably, in terms of pure pace, been their worst weekend of the season, or definitely worst couple of races of the year, both out in Q1. It's those kind of conditions where you hope you can spring a surprise result, and they've had some big results in quali this year. So a disappointing start to the weekend, and of course, big incident on lap one, and normally that's the kind of incident where you see at least one of the Haas cars involved somewhere, or in the aftermath seem to lose a tire or something. But both of them, for once, got away with it, which, as a Haas fan, and I'm sure there's going to be Haas fans in chat, that never happens. I was in disbelief that they were both fine. Both of them, I think, were 12th and 13th after that big incident on lap one. And I was kind of disappointed that they went back to the original results for Haas, because they were shuffled all the way to the back again. But for the first time in what seems like forever, both just had clean races. There wasn't any kind of mechanical issues. There wasn't really any incidents apart from Max at the end, where Schumacher was pushed off a little bit, but there was no argy-bargy. It was just beautiful, clean racing, no dramas, simple strategies that worked. And it was nice to see Schumacher just on the pace of K-Mag, because both of them were going through the traffic together, swapping positions a few times. I think we saw one instance where Mick overtook K-Mag during the race, and on the restart at the end, I will say K-Mag was in front, and that was the only thing I will say was silly about Haas today. Why they decided to let K-Mag restart the race on 19-lap medium tyres, I will never know. But he still was able to score a point, and of course Mick scored 4, arguably should have been 6 today. And you're right. I think Brundle, talking about Sainz ticking off, first time leading a race, first pole, first win. That's great to build championships. But for Mick to finally have that monkey off his back, that he scored that first points, should have got them last time out. That's going to be a big weight off, a big pressure off. And I'm not expecting him to score points every weekend. It seems like a car that sometimes is great, sometimes is absolutely awful. So that's not going to be the target. But to be on the pace now of K-Mag more regularly, which I think is fair enough to say he has been the last 2 or 3 Grand Prix, that's the main point for him at the moment. And for Haas, it's been only 2 or 3 points finishes this year. It's not been a lot, and Miami should have been a double points finish, but to finally get that double points finish for the first time since, I think, Germany 2019, when Robert Kubica scored a point, that is a big relief for them. And again, considering where they were last year, to finally achieve that at a track which hasn't always been their best is, a big result for them. So I'm not displeased with today's result, mate.
I just look at the Magnussen thing you talk about. I'm not sure what, unless I've misunderstood what you meant. He started on the softs and then pitted under the red flag, or stopped under the red flag for change, then went to a used set of mediums and then onto a fresh set of mediums to the end of the race.
Maybe it's the graphic then, because on the restart, the graphic, everyone had like 1 or 2 laps on the soft, and K-Mag had 19. So maybe that's a graphic issue, or they weren't new mediums. Maybe they were a used set.
Yeah,
I don't know.
First set he switched to from the softs was the used ones after or during the red flag. So, and then onto the fresh mediums for the rest of the race.
It wouldn't be the first time an F1 graphic was wrong. So
fair enough. Let's do Aston as well quickly then as well, because we've kind of didn't have a lot to say about McLaren other than Lando Norris had a great race. Great to see him racing up there as well. So we'll do Aston, and then we'll take a quick pause while I ask for more likes and do my YouTube spiel. Also, thank you to Pascal, said for your contribution. Said, just so glad that Guan Yu is okay. That was a massive shunt. A bad day for my team, Alfa Romeo Sauber overall, but Guan Yu being fine is the most important thing. On days like this, points are only a detail. Thank you very much for your super chat, and I completely agree with you. I mean, look, when I saw the car, the second I saw it, I was like, that has to be a red flag. That's it. Has to be a red flag. Obviously, a couple of people asking about protesters. All I'm going to say about the protesters is I'm not going to give them the oxygen they're so desperate for. The only thing I will say is if you feel the need to walk onto a live racetrack and sit on the track, then you're a fucking idiot. And you kind of deserve everything that comes your way. Obviously not too severe with that, but you know what I mean. Absolutely ridiculous. That's all I'm going to say because I'm not giving the oxygen they're craving. Protesting, you should have a right to protest, but you've got to do it the right way because that's just so bloody stupid. Anyway, excuse my language as well. Sorry, it does annoy me. Aston Martin, as I say, Vettel has to hit the back of Alex Albon in turn 1 at that first start. I'm putting that down as a racing incident as well. There's chaos. What's he supposed to do, Seb? You know, there's cars everywhere, there's debris everywhere, there's smoke everywhere. That kind of thing is always going to happen. He's hit the back of Albon. That looked like it compromised. He started on the softs as well, didn't he, Seb? So it was quite a weird one. No, that was the second restart, wasn't it? Sorry. So we had the contact with Albon. That compromised him. Then had the restart, went onto the softs, pitted quite early to get rid of the softs on lap 8. Don't know why. Maybe he was just struggling on those ones. Nice overtake on Verstappen as Verstappen exited the pit lane. That was a nice little battle. I bet Seb enjoyed that one going up against Red Bull. It's been a while. It's been a while since Seb take on a Red Bull properly, hasn't it? I know Verstappen had damage, but that was quite a nice one for him. Not a huge amount on Seb, but it's a couple of points on the board, and he's another driver, isn't he, that seems to have just hit form at the right time, Dan. I'm going to have a look for their press release, but he seems to have hit form at the right time. So I'm really pleased to see him getting those results. And it's nice to see him able to fight. And I think Aston have got on top of this concept they've got now. They seem to be working with the car much better, but it's just always fun to see Seb racing. I said that last time, I think. It's just nice to see him involved rather than trundling around. Frustrated after qualifying again, by the way. Not happy. I don't know what Aston keep doing with quali. Maybe they like qualifying low down, Dan, just so they can make you happy on a Sunday with their long stints at the start of races.
Maybe, but I don't know if you saw Martin Brundle's grid walk. I don't think Lawrence Stroll was too happy. So they need to get on top of that because that's 2 weekends in a row where they've both been out in Q1, both in wet qualies, and especially last time out in Montreal, they were confident they were going to get a big result. So, yeah, work to do on a Saturday, but on a Sunday, I don't feel it's too bad. And again, they were a team at the start of the year that looked awful. That really seemed like they were going to have a difficult season. And it's another race that they've scored points. I think Seb, considering he missed those first 2 races, came back in Australia and probably shouldn't have been back that quick at that point, ever since, has, I think, had a solid little season. And today, fighting back as he did, great. As you mentioned, fighting a little bit with Verstappen was fun to see. And it seems like he's not refound that form, because I think that's a bit of a drastic statement to make in the car he's in, but he's driving much more consistent, and those spins that we used to see a couple of years ago and mistakes that creeped in last year don't really seem to be there, and he's molded nicely again into that team leader. And whereas Stroll on his day last year was able to match Seb, I think Seb really is in control of that team at the moment. And that's not to say Lance didn't have a good day, because he did. And he's another one who kept it clean, kept it going, and has scored points right from the back of the grid again, not for the first time this season. So not a bad day for Aston, but it is one of those things where it's boring and annoying to keep saying that they need to work on a Saturday. But at the end of the day, they do, because they race well. Qualifying, though, is that really Achilles heel for them this year.
The tyre pressures in Canada, wasn't it, in qualifying? Because they looked really good in practice in the wet, or Seb did. Then it went wrong with the tyre pressures. And then yesterday it was just a disaster again for them, which I can't help but feel if they... I'm just having a look to see if I can find their press release from yesterday, actually. Sebastian Vettel was just saying he didn't have the pace. Is anything on tyre pressures there, but no. But it's just disappointing on a Saturday. And I can't help but feel if they got that right, where would they be in these races? Because, Vettel 9th today, starting higher in theory. I know it's not always the way it goes in F1, but starting higher in theory, he's going to be getting more points, isn't he, if he's delivering these races now? So, I don't know. It's easy to say, I guess. Lance Stroll gets my honorary He Was There award for this weekend. He finished P11, which is, it's something. 1.5 seconds behind Kevin Magnussen. He didn't pit by the look of it under the safety car. I'm just going to check again with Pirelli. This is late safety cars absolutely throw me off with pit stops because I can't always keep up with who's pitted and who hasn't. So Lance Stroll didn't Oh no, he did pit. Sorry, onto used mediums for the final safety car, but again on the same lap as Lando, a lap later maybe than others. So perhaps there was a point there to be had for him. But again, it's got to be the Saturdays for Stroll. How many times have I said this on that channel? He's got to sort these Saturdays out again, and he's had a pole position. I've got nothing on Stroll at all in my notes, Dan, unless you've got something that you can add, or if there's anything in chat you can remember that Stroll did today. But I remember seeing nothing of him. I found about 3 pictures of him on Motorsport Images, so he's not done an awful lot. But hey, I'm not being condescending when I say this. He finished the race, and in a chaotic race, that's what you've got to do, because there might be a point or two at the end of it. It wasn't today, but another day that could be worth P8.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like you, I didn't really see anything. Chat, feel free to correct us. But in days like today, where there is so much going wrong and there's mistakes being made and cars dropping out, just to keep your nose clean, score some points, that's your only job. And he did exactly that. So you can't really fault him.
Just without the points.
Yeah.
So not quite exactly that. Yeah, I'm going to call you out. You've had B twice in this one.
Yeah, sorry. He's close to points. Close to points.
Yeah, like Alpine were close to a faultless race in Canada, yeah. Please do drop a like on the stream. Always appreciate it. 361. We need to get to 500 for Charles Edward Cheese, so we're nearly there. Still 1,100 of you watching, so please do drop a like. Always appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. Austrian Grand Prix preview next Thursday. It's going thick and fast in July. Next Thursday, and obviously race reaction on Sunday as well. And once I've got... all I'm going to say, for the lack of content between races, is I had no idea. I said it on Twitter, no idea how much time that puppy was going to bloody take up. It's like a full-time freaking job, trying to keep an eye on him and stop him crapping on my carpet, chewing the furniture. So hopefully soon I'll be able to get back to a few more videos. I know some of you are frustrated with the gap between, but hopefully very, very soon I'll be able to get back to something near what this channel used to be in terms of content, but we'll get there. So yeah, please do drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe as well. Lots to come. Where are we at? Williams. I believe that'd be Williams, wouldn't it? Latifi, yeah. So we've done Aston, yeah. Williams then. I think Latifi, one of the drivers of the day yesterday. Absolutely fantastic in qualifying. I think it's 10th place. I think it equals his best ever start, but correct me if I'm wrong, chat and Dan. I think it's his best ever qualifying performance, because I think his start in Belgium last year at the race that wasn't a race, I seem to think he gained positions because of penalties. So I think that's the first time he's qualified 10th and started there, if that makes sense. Really great from Latifi yesterday. I was proper happy for him as well, because we give him a lot of grief. Of course we do. Somebody's got to get the wooden spoon from us F1 fans, and it's Latifi at the moment. If he leaves at the end of the season, it'll be probably Stroll, bless him. But, someone's going to get stick. They always do. But, he's a nice guy, and he did a great job yesterday. Didn't really work out for points. I must admit, there was a point where I thought he was going to do it in the garage. Enough was happening. There was enough chaos for me to think, do you know what? Latifi's going to pull this one off. Now, the notes I've got for him, he started on the softs. He pitted, he moved up to P8 because of a bit of chaos, of course. Then that was on lap 15. Then we kind of ended up with what I've called a Latifi train. He did also get to pit under the safety car, which helped him out too. So I'm pretty impressed with him this weekend. I'm kind of just disappointed that he couldn't cap it with a point, because a positive for him is that he has now overhauled Hulkenberg, who hasn't raced since the second race of the season, but he's still pointless. And I feel like just a point, just to make the table look a bit nicer more than anything, but also for his confidence.
Yeah,
all I care about is what my graphics look like. I don't care about drivers.
Yeah, especially now Schumacher's got a point as well. It seems slightly disheartening. He's the only full-time driver without one, bless him. But of all the races this year, this was the one he deserved it the most. And I think, yes, as you say, he's a driver that gets a fair bit of stick. But if Alex Albon had the weekend that Latifi had this weekend, I think there's a lot of people that would be giving him a lot of praise. Not only getting through to Q3, but staying in that top 10 for pretty much the entire race. Yes, a lot was going on, but staying in that position and not plummeting through the field. If that was Albon, I think a lot of people would be giving him a lot of credit today. So I think Latifi definitely deserves that to himself today. And I think for me, you're right, there were moments I thought he was going to get points, but as I mentioned earlier, the fact Latifi had DRS on Max Verstappen, just regardless of Verstappen's issues today, just the fact that happened That was enough to make today's race incredible. And it wasn't for one lap, it was at least 2 or 3. That alone is brilliant. And yeah, Verstappen had his own issues. Latifi was in a very, very different race he's been used to this season. But I'm not quite sure where he was in relation to everyone else at that final safety car, but it was looking good where he was on the bubble for points. And if, one more person, 2 more people had had an incident in front, if Hamilton and Leclerc had come together in Cops, or Perez and Leclerc had fumbled over a bit more in a club in those closing stages, then he would have scored points. Either way, though, I think finishing in front of Danny Rick is respectable. And I think overall how he's conducted himself in quali yesterday and the race today is impressive. And a driver who certainly is under pressure at the moment. That's exactly how you silence haters. Yesterday in particular, but today again, not a bad job at all. So Latifi, definitely his best race this year. Maybe not his best race in F1. That'd probably be Hungary last year.
Yeah.
But close to it. I think he's done himself proud this time out.
So 2 things. If you're a Verstappen fan and somebody says to you, can you wrap up Verstappen's race in as few words as possible, just say Latifi had DRS on him and he wasn't being lapped. that would probably sum up poor Verstappen's race. And the other thing, which is now going to escape me completely, well, no, it isn't. It's kind of back to what I said about Stroll. In a chaotic race, you've just got to get to the finish, and if there's enough chaos, you might get some points. And that's what he's done. He's finished the Grand Prix. So beaten Danny Rick, beaten Tsunoda, who had, get to him in a minute, the most bizarre Grand Prix. But yeah, I think, it's more about Saturday for me for Latifi, this reaction, which is silly for a race reaction, but it's a weekend reaction, I suppose. Brilliant yesterday. I nearly fell off my chair. The fact that he qualified inside the top 10, made it into Q3, just didn't come together for the race, which he's in the old spec Williams. I'm guessing Albon will be in the old spec Williams at at Austria, because that's probably in a bit of a mess. I don't know, only joking, but yeah, he's in the old spec Williams. He's not the best driver out there, let's be quite honest, and I think it was always going to be tough today. And he's not a great car either, is it? Williams they are clearly the slowest out there at the moment. I mean, they can cut adrift now a little bit in the championship, even more so. So yeah, and I do, for the record, as I said the other week, I still think he will be at Williams to the end of the season, because I don't see an Oscar Piastri coming in and picking up enough points to help Williams overhaul Aston Martin to justify losing that Latifi money. So I think you'll see the season out, and then probably Piastri by the sounds of it for next year. But again, that's a story for another day. Alex Albon, I'll check for an update on Alex Albon actually, but the last I heard, he was transferred to hospital in Coventry. Now actually, Black Hawk So made a very good point, which I made a note of, kind of my handwriting. So may have been, it's only speculation this, but it's a good point from Blackhawk. So Coventry do specialise in cranial concussion trauma. So maybe he's failed a concussion test or something like that, so they need to take him for a scan or something like that. And that while speculation, would fit in with the precautionary checks line, to be fair. So thank you very much again for that one. I'm just double checking. Nothing from Williams, which always gets me nervous, because funnily enough, they've not got the fastest car, Williams. Well, they're bloody quick at getting their press releases out. So yeah, just going to have a look. Oh, they've got the debrief up, see if there's anything in there on Alex Albon, just as an update. No. I spot this on Latifi. Stroll passed Nicholas Latifi on lap 50. So actually, Latifi was on for P11 until Stroll breezed past. How dare he? What a disgrace. I thought we were on for a great result there. Just haven't looked at anything else. Nothing from Williams at the moment on Alex Albon. In fact, they've been very quiet on Twitter, which is fair enough. I'll have another double check and just see if anyone's watched TED or anything and there's any news there, then that'll be great. Just let me know, but nothing at the moment. So if anything comes through before the end of the stream, we'll go over it. But it was a nasty one, wasn't it? Because as I said, he got hit multiple times, because he got hit by Sebastian Vettel in the rear. That pitched him into the pit wall, which is going to hurt. He then hits Ocon, and then Tsunoda collects him as well. I mean, that's horrible for him in there. So maybe there is a concussion test failure in there or something like that. But I hope he's okay. They did, like I said, they said precautionary checks. So that fills me with confidence that he's probably going to be okay and fit for next week. So obviously not a lot to say on Albon's race, because that was as far as it went for him. But what I would say, without tearing into him, is it's not actually been the best weekend for him, has it? Out qualified yesterday by Latifi pretty substantially. I mean, don't get me wrong, Albon's had the beating of him over the course of the season so far, but just not his finest weekend. Maybe just getting to grips with the new Williams. I don't know, caught out by conditions, but hopefully he's okay in hospital.
Yeah, and is this the first time Latifi's out-qualified Albon? I
I can
I
say in a sec.
can't. Yeah, I'll give you a second. I feel it might be, but if not, I mean, Albon, as you said, has done more than enough this season to warrant not a great weekend. And yesterday's conditions were yesterday's conditions. There's always going to be one or two drivers that get caught out, and I think Albon wrong place at the wrong time in the start and tried to do the right thing, not going into the back of Bottas, but the domino effects, he couldn't really do anything about that. So lovely helmet design this weekend, but
Mm.
that's about the only nice thing that happened to Albon this weekend, bless him.
So the way I do I know some people do it differently, but the way I do my head-to-heads in qualifying is both drivers have to have completed a lap for it to count as a direct comparison, because you know how I like things to be as direct as possible. 8-1 in qualifying. So this was the first time that Latifi out-qualified Albon this weekend, based on sessions where they both set lap times. So I don't know. There is a 0-0 in there, so I don't know if there's been a race where Latifi's officially qualified ahead because Albon had a problem or something like that. But in sessions they've both set a lap time in, Latifi is 8-1 down. So that's a big result for him, though, isn't it, this weekend, then, to out-qualify Albon, and not such a great result for Albon to lose out to his teammate. But I don't think Albon, aside from the accident, will be losing too much sleep about it this weekend, because he is 8-1 up in qualifying and pretty comfortably the better of the two.
Yeah, I think so as well. And it's not as if we had a fair representation of what Albon was able to do in the race. I think, given normal circumstances, Albon probably, and sorry to Latifi fans, but I think Albon probably would have been able to catch him, or at least be in the mix in that same kind of group with Latifi. So we'll never know. And at the end of the day, Nicholas did do a great job today, so I don't want to take that away from him. But I think it will be business as normal at the Red Bull Ring.
No, Kevin, Nick didn't get the upgrades. That was Albon had the upgraded car this weekend, so even better. Well, potentially better for Latifi. Probably bad news for Williams, maybe. I don't know. It depends how they want to look at it. Thank you as well to Rixis for your super chat. Massively appreciate it. Thank you for your support on the channel. Where do we get to? Tsunoda and Gasly, AlphaTauri. I mean, you want to talk about races to forget? How's this one for you? So, Tsunoda, I think, got a black and white flag for track limits. I might be wrong on that one. He was caught in the incident at turn 1, where, again, a lot of damage to his car on the front of his car, and I thought he might struggle, but it was, I think, mostly front wing on Tsunoda. I might be wrong. Obviously, I'll read AlphaTauri's thing in a moment if that's come through. He went back to the pits. Repairs were done. He started the race. Was racing hard with his teammate. We didn't see all of it, but racing hard with his teammate. So hard, in fact, that he went for a move up the inside of Pierre Gasly, lost control of his car, and sent his teammate into a spin as well. That bought him a 5-second penalty. So congrats, Yuki. Great move. And that was basically it. Gasly later retired with a mechanical issue. I'm going to read their thing when Dan's talking in a second, because I think that's just come through. And Tsunoda was P14 in the end. So pretty damn miserable day for AlphaTauri on a weekend where Pierre Gasly said to the press that he was having cold sweats and nightmares at night. I'm maybe exaggerating a little bit, because of the points that AlphaTauri have dropped this season. Well, yeah, big shocker of a weekend for them in the end, and 27 points on the board compared to Alfa Romeo's 51. So a chance to close the gap on Alfa, by Alfa, and Alfa cocked it up, even though no Alfa finished. Are you keeping up?
Goodness me, that was a lot of Alfa.
It's all Alfa.
It's all Alfa today, yeah. That's bad, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think there's anything worse for a team than when teammates crash into each other. And I hate to all be Haas, but as a Haas fan, that happened all the time at one point. It's not happened for a while. And I think for AlphaTauri, this could be the first time it's happened to Yuki and Pierre. And we all know how well they get on. But to do it in the circumstances that happened today, where they had a big chance to score points over their rivals, they were, I believe, on the edge of the points or just inside the points at the time of that first big contact. And Yuki, I think, saw going down the inside. I mean, it's great in the first place that they're allowed to race. I think that's what AlphaTauri is all about, is proving themselves against their teammate to try and get that move to Red Bull in the future. So I love the fact AlphaTauri are very open to that. and normally it goes well, but Yuki goes down the inside of turn 3, and it looks like he can see there's going to be contact, tries to back out, but then loses the rear and hits Gasly, and it just gets from bad to worse. And I don't think from that point onwards they were ever really going to be able to recover. And Yuki, from that point, we never saw him again, apart from when he was unlapping the safety car. And Pierre, as you said, eventually had to retire as well. So a really disappointing day for them, because whereas other teams, there were incidents going on that were out of their control, for AlphaTauri, they had a big opportunity today. Fair play to them, I will say, for getting Yuki's car fixed after lap 1. Just like Alpine, I didn't think they'd be able to fix Ocon's car. I didn't think AlphaTauri would fix Yuki's. But even still, all that work was really for nothing. And it's definitely not going to be a friendly environment in that debrief this evening.
So Yuki starts his quotes off with, "It's been a difficult day." Love it. Understatement of the year. Collision at the start was unavoidable. Came in sideways, explaining his say on that one. Luckily, only damaged the front wing, actually, so it wasn't as bad as maybe we thought. Okay. Dan had contact with Pierre later on. This I love racy drivers. You ready for this? I need to review it properly. I can tell you, Yuki. But at the moment, I think I could have waited for another opportunity to pass him. My speed was good going to the corner, so I thought I could make it through. I also didn't expect Pierre to close the door as much as he did. Not sure on that one, Yuki. So this is a mistake from my side. Mainly just want to say sorry to the team. Pierre says, from a difficult weekend, we actually made it quite a bit better with qualifying. Then after the race start today, I was running in 7th. We were in a great position. Following the incident with Yuki, I had damage to my rear wing, so we had to retire the car. Every point is valuable, especially in a season like this. So I'm disappointed as the end result today, as it was an unnecessary collision. And Jody Eggington, the technical director at AlphaTauri, says it's very frustrating to have thrown away likely points finish this weekend, where the team and drivers have worked so hard to extract the maximum from the package and get the cars into a position to fight for points. So, yeah, frustration at AlphaTauri, and you can kind of understand why. I've seen people saying it. First rule is you don't take out your teammate, and that's happened. And obviously, damage to his rear wing as well. Pierre, that's why they've got the black and orange flag, and that's why he ultimately retired on lap 28. So points in the bin again, potentially for AlphaTauri there. Obviously, you never know how a race is going to unfold. Just because you're running P7 on lap 27 or whatever doesn't mean that you're going to be running P7 come the end of the race. You could be down in 17th for all you know. So, but at that point, it was looking very, very good for them. Thank you very much for Rixis again for another super chat. Says, I wanted to say congrats for you for great UK race, for great reaction videos available on YouTube. So throwing you some continental money. Love from Latvia. Thank you so much, Rixis. Massively appreciate your support there with that super chat. So thank you very much. And love from the UK. There you go. Where are we up to? I think we've only got Alfa Romeo left, unless I'm completely wrong, Dan.
Yeah, no,
it's been such a chaotic race. I just cannot remember where I'm up to. Well, my notes are in the wrong order because everyone decided to be chaotic today and couldn't just finish in the right order, could they? Bloody rude. Valtteri Bottas. We'll start with Bottas because there's not much to say. He seemed to get caught behind Latifi, I think, for a little while, but lap 21, he pitted and had a mechanical issue. I'll just see if they've got anything in a press release as well. But yeah, he was kind of behind Latifi in what I call that Latifi train, or what I am calling that Latifi train. Just seeing if he said anything in his notes. We had an issue with the gearbox. So it was a gearbox issue for Bottas. So I ultimately had to stop to prevent further damage. It was unfortunate because we had good race pace and we could have scored a big amount of points, even though it's been a tough weekend. We can still draw some positives from the race. And amazingly, Zhou Guanyu has got some quotes for us. Safety in F1, It was a big crash and I'm glad I'm okay. The marshals and the medical team at the track were fantastic with their quick response, and I also owe my thanks to the FIA and Formula One for all the work they have done and they keep doing to improve the safety of our cars. The halo saved me today, no doubt about that, and it goes to show that every step we take to improve our cars has real, valuable results. I'm keener than ever to get back on track and do what I love. I'm fit and I'm looking forward to Austria next week. So that's fantastic news about Zhou Guanyu there, and you know, second incident this weekend where the debate over the halo, yeah, it should have disappeared a long time ago, but there are still some people out there that will say that it should go. But I think we've had two incidents today, one in F2 and one in F1, that prove that that halo is absolutely needed and absolutely doing its job, because that roll hoop on the, in fact, I've got some pictures of the incident actually here. Let's have a quick look at that. have a look at that incident there as it's going on. So yeah, that the roll hoop just completely fell to pieces, didn't it? And the most shocking part about that accident for me, obviously when you're watching it on TV, you'll have all seen the same pictures because that's the live feed. The bit where he shoots across the camera almost into the runoff, and you're just going, oh shit, basically is my reaction, and that needs to be red flag, something's wrong. But to see the other angle where he ends up in the catch fencing and then down between the barrier and the fence, I mean, that is absolutely terrifying. So he's right, isn't he? You know, huge credits. They get a lot of criticism, but huge credits to the FI and F1 for all they've done for safety, for the halo, for everything they've done for these crash structures, because it's ultimately saved another life today. And Yuki, not Yuki, sorry. I'm still mad about Yuki Tsunoda. I'm sorry, so bloody livid. Yeah, but for Zhou, he's hopped out not hopped out the car, but they've got him out the car, gone for hospital or the medical centre for checks, and he's absolutely fine. Which just does, you look at the incident, you go, how can he be? But he is. He's absolutely fine. As somebody actually, I'm sorry I can't call you out. I should have written it down like I did with Black Hawk So's. But somebody said in chat earlier that, you know, was Zhou in that car for so long just because it was impossible to get him out of that car, or not easy to get him out of that car because of the tight gap between the fence and the barrier. So he's probably just sat there singing away, you know, chatting on team radio, feeling fine, just waiting to get out of the car. Absolutely incredible. So I don't like saying a lucky lad, but it's just it's a turn of phrase, isn't it? A turn of phrase. It's not luck. It's safety improvements in F1 is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely, and you're right. I kind of don't want to waste my breath saying again just how good the halo is, because it's just everyone I feel should understand at this point just the halo, how necessary it is in Formula One. And you're right, 2 incidents this weekend, but they're not exclusive to just this weekend. We've seen several now where they've saved lives, and today, and undoubtedly, I think it saves Guan Yu. And I think Formula One have learned with gravel being there, brilliant. The tyre wall, 2 catch fences, all of that was great. And, you know, again, without repeating what you've said, I think Formula One has also learned from that Grosjean incident a couple of years ago in Bahrain, where I think Formula One was quite respectful that they weren't showing pictures of the incidents until they knew he was out. They weren't showing replays. The drivers would in seemingly being kept up to date, but we were kind of being left in the dark, and that privacy element, which wasn't there in Bahrain a couple of years ago. So that was, you know, obviously horrible at the time. And, you know, you're kind of hoping for the best, but thinking the worst might be possible with an incident like that at those kind of speeds. But at the same time, from a driver's perspective, for Joe and for Alfa Romeo, that bit of privacy that we didn't have a few years ago was nice from Formula One. And it was nice to see that they'd learned from that incident. And yeah, it's, again, I don't want to say lucky, and I don't want to say a miracle, but it feels like it is, considering the length he was there. Yeah, I'm so glad he's okay. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Joe, but I think no matter what your feelings are on him and why he's in Formula One, I think everyone is so happy he got away with that. And to be this in the state he's in, he seems fine. You wouldn't believe he was in that kind of incident. You know, he seemed quite buoyant to be out of the car, which that in itself is lovely. And it is really nice. He, by the looks of it, is going to be racing next weekend. And in fairness to him, another really great quali to beat Bottas for the 3rd weekend in a row. He really has hit a bit of form recently. So yeah, really, really happy to see him get away from that one, because it really was a freak crash. We don't see them often. We don't want to see them. And yeah, just over the moon, he's all right.
Will from FP1. Hey, Will. I'll watch your video later. I watched your F1 22 video, which had me laughing. The first one, I've not seen the other one yet. Nice to see you on the stream, mate. Says, we're lucky the car didn't flip higher, could have gone into the crowd. As Dan just said there, catch fencing doing its job. It's not, you know, we talk about the halo, but it's not just the halo that's done its job. It's the crash structure. As you say, Dan, the barriers, the catch fencing, everything's worked. But it's just terrifying to see. I mean, it's like, what was the lad's name in Monza?
Peroni?
Yeah, Peroni. You see that, you just don't want to see cars flying into catch fence. That's why it's there, is to keep not necessarily a car in, but parts of cars, and it's worked with a car today. So really scary stuff. And I did see Sassy Lemon Cake, wicked name. Also, I love a lemon cake. It says, has the roll hoop ever failed like this before? I don't know if it's obviously not the specifics, but I think, did Nick Heifeld in a BMW a few years, quite a few years ago now, end up upside down at the Nürburgring, I think. Or am I thinking of Pedro Diniz? Might be Pedro Diniz, where his roll hoop had dug into the ground, and his head was just resting on the floor, on the ground, on the grass. So we've seen these things fail before. I don't know if a roll hoop is supposed to fail. I would imagine it's not, given it's a roll hoop, but maybe there's something somewhere it's supposed to break under a certain load. I don't know, but the halo's there to stop, like Diniz, like I say, hanging out his car and head on the floor, which is terrifying when you think about it, actually. Absolutely terrifying. So, yeah, I've got we talked about it a little bit earlier, didn't we? But it's just, it could be chat as well, so maybe they'll address the gaps between barriers and fences in the future and look at it. I think you would sort of touch on that as well, Dan. It's something that maybe will get looked at, because one thing the FIA does do is they do learn. Sometimes they learn too late, but they do learn from these things, and we might come to Silverstone or even Austria with that gap might be gone. But then I don't know. I'm not good with this kind of thing, so I don't know how much of a gap there needs to be there for things to work properly, if you follow what I'm saying. So maybe the whole hoop is not designed for forces in that direction, perhaps. Thank you very much, Cited Canvas. Says it's supposedly the hardest point on the car aside from the engine block, says Ramble. So that's quite a scary one. Didn't the whole roll hoop break off in mixed Jeddah crash? Could have done. I couldn't think of that one. A few people as well on Twitter I did see saying that we need to get rid of gravel. A lot of people will say we need gravel, but did the gravel make that one worse? That's one that we'll obviously discuss in the future. An Albon update from Williams, apparently. So I'll read that one as well while we're talking about the accident. That might be in their press release. Here we go. So, in fact, I'll see if it's on Twitter, because they might just put a more concise statement out, because when I'm reading through press releases, I try to avoid all the spiel that you get, like, oh, it's a difficult day. I want to know the ins and outs. So we are pleased to confirm that Alex has been given the all clear and has been discharged from Coventry Hospital. Thank you to everyone for their well wishes. And Alex says, I'm very glad that everyone else involved in the first lap incident is okay. Thank you to all the medical staff at the track and Coventry Hospital. It's a shame our race ended before it began today, but we are already focused on Austria. Bring on the next one. I hope it means race and not crash. Bring on the next one, says Alex Albon, who's absolutely fine. Is Albon. Apparently he's tweeted from hospital as well. I assume it'll be along the lines of what I've just read. So great that Alex Albon's okay. Great that just great that everybody's okay after that one. No, he says all okay. The pets are okay, but more importantly, I'm glad that Zhou is okay. Thank you for the medical staff and for all the messages. Eyes already on Austria. So great to hear that everyone is okay. But like I say, people might debate the gravel trap. Maybe we need a concrete runoff. F1's never going to be totally safe. It just isn't going to be. So there's always going to be this debate over gravel, concrete, roll hoops, halo. There's always going to be that debate, isn't there? But everything seemed to work as it was supposed to today for the most part. But I don't know. I think I heard on Sky again. I was listening at the corner of my ear, if that's a saying. But I heard on Sky that there's an escape road there or something that maybe threw him up, and that was the problem. Maybe that's something they need to look at. I don't know, but we'll get more information. I mean, after these big crashes, usually the FIA go away, look into them, look at all the data, and then we sort of get drip fed a little bit of information, and then maybe some changes are made for next year. But for the 15,000th time in this stream already, the most important thing is that everyone's okay, and we've got 20 drivers going to Austria.
Definitely, and that seems kind of unbelievable that that's the case with, of course, Joe's crash, but also Alex as well, the amount of times he was hit. So it's nice to see that he's pretty much all okay as well. So yeah, the two main things, that everyone's okay, and also that, Formula One does learn from this, which, as you say, they often do with these kind of incidents. So that's, yeah, brilliant to hear.
If you're going to do anything, remove the bloody sausage curbs and concrete walls before worrying about the gravel, says Richard Potts. I mean, sausage curbs. I'm sorry to be really downbeat when I say this. I don't want to turn the stream too dark, but are we with these sausage curves? Do we think we're hurtling towards another one of those FIA waiting for somebody to be killed before they do something? Because we seem to have that in F1. They'll make changes after this one. They made changes after Grosjean, but we seem to have this governing body that from time to time there's an issue and they don't address it, and then as soon as somebody. It's the one I always go to. Tractors on track or at the side of the track when the race is going on, and what? So many warning signs over the years. Why did we have to wait until somebody was killed before that rule was changed. I hope that's not where we go with sausage curbs. But I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how much worse it can get. We had Peroni, very lucky, despite the halo, to come out of that one. We had Nissani and Hauger today in that incident without the halo. That they're launched by sausage curbs. I think was it Sean Galale injured himself. At what point I think we had a W series, a W series driver as well.
Macau.
Yeah, the Macau one was horrible, awful. So it feels like the accidents can't get much worse. So maybe that's what they are waiting for. But sorry to be so pessimistic and dark. It's kind of what they do, really, isn't it? They just don't seem to.
Yeah,
they're proactive in some things, like I'm not going to say it. They're proactive in some things, but they're not. They just don't seem to really worry about other things and just react when it's too late. So sausage curbs. I understand why the sausage curbs are there. I get the purpose. So you don't need to explain it to me. I know why the FIA use the sausage curbs, but it's quite clear that they are massively dangerous as well. So is there another solution? Obviously, that's if you'd like to think if there was another solution, Dan, that they'd be using that other solution.
Yeah, you would. I mean, little pots of gravel, or whatever weird substance they use in Paul Ricard, but nowhere else in the world. Yeah, you would like to think that, but as you've said, and that'd been too awful to the FIA. This is the FIA, and with these kind of things, they are kind of notorious for acting quite slow. So not every track has them, not every corner has them. So using that logic, we shouldn't need them at corners that you're coming at that high speed. I suppose to cut them a bit of slack, there are some very, very clever people at the FIA. You'd like to think they have very, very strong reasons for keeping them. It's just, I don't think I particularly share those views for keeping them when you can see what kind of incidents can happen with sausage curbs.
A couple of people in chat making a very good and fair point. That the sausage curbs in slow corners are not really the issue, it's the fast corners. My only argument to that is that generally most of the time, so I'll be clear, I'm not saying that it's always the case, but most of the time, a slow corner has followed a fast straight or a fast run. So if something goes wrong with the car and you come hurtling towards that corner and you catch a sausage curb, you're in trouble. So I agree that in a slow speed corner, it's fine. A sausage curb in Monaco, you're probably going to be all right. But at most or a lot of tracks, you've got a high speed section that leads into a slow speed corner, and that's when we're seeing. The sausage curbs in. Jeddah,
Club is a slow corner, isn't it? So there was still
you'd be all right through there, yeah. But Vale is it Vale before Club? I've gone brain dead.
Yeah. Vale Club, you're right.
So Vale is a slow speed corner, but you're coming off that long hanger straight through the quick stow, and then on a little straight before you get there. So that sausage curb there isn't going to work, is it? That's where accidents happen. And I mean, I will also say, there's a couple of people think that I'm completely wrong on this, but I think anybody that thinks it wasn't Nissani's fault this morning is just kidding themselves, quite frankly. Without Nissani on the track today, that accident doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean? How many chances that guy gets, I don't know. But anyway, driver of the day, rolling on very quickly from that one. Driver of the day, one surname in chat. Who is your driver of the day? Sergio Perez got the official one, and I think I can understand why. I've written my 3 down. I know I've written 3 down because only 2 of us on today, Dan, so I need to do a backup one. But who have you gone for your driver of the day?
Oh, I feel this is a tricky one. I feel there could be 3 or 4 that are in with a strong shout, but I am going to go with Lewis Hamilton today. First podium in a long time. I don't know if you know that since last weekend. But I think I'll say something stupid very shortly. Don't worry. At least it's not Raikkonen today as driver of the day. But I think just the manner of his drive, being on the back foot in those early doors behind Norris with that big gap to close down the Ferraris. And I know that Mercedes pace is better in the race than it was yesterday in quali, but to catch him like he did, to really be, I think, the star of the show today with the crowd behind him, that was really, really nice to see. Some really nice fights in there, some great overtakes. That battle with Leclerc on its own was worthy of driver of the day for both of them. And yeah, I think if you're really going to count a main character of today's race, I would give that to Lewis Hamilton. So he just edges driver of the day for me. But as I said, I think there's 3 or 4 really strong candidates today.
Yeah, I think what Sainz, although he made that sorry to put you on mic, Sainz, although he made that mistake, didn't he, which could have cost him the win. Perez for his comeback, Hamilton for the weekend as a whole has been pretty strong for him, and then for his performance today to keep it interesting for us as well at the front. Leclerc maybe as well, because strategy wasn't really great for him today. Alonso was fantastic. Norris had a great race. Mick Schumacher for his first points. Vettel coming through. It's really tough. It is really, really tough. But I am going to be, I guess, obvious for a change rather than going too left field. And I am going to say Perez, because I know you don't necessarily agree, Dan, as you've already said earlier in the stream, but I'm going to say Perez because P16, an incident that wasn't, he was partially at fault for, but wasn't really his fault, compromised his race. And he drove really, really nicely. And yes, he got lucky with the time of the safety car for his stop, but I still think he's done the job today to get P2, to come through the field from 16th to P2. And it reminded me a little bit of his first win, but not quite last to first, obviously.
I know what you mean.
But a little bit like his first win. So I think I am going to go with Checo. It's difficult as well, because I quite want to go. I want to go with Sainz because his weekend's been really strong, and I think that yes, he had that mistake, and yeah, all right, maybe Verstappen would have disappeared with it, but he made some great shouts on strategy as well, telling the team to shut up basically over the radio when he's being told to go 10 car lengths back. He can see things happening, and I like that. But I'm going to go with Checo this week. I don't give Checo driver that often, actually, I don't think so. Yeah, I'm going to go with Perez. See what have we gone with? Hamilton and Perez. Yeah, but like I say, so many honourable mentions, aren't there? Which is kind of crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm just trying to think of who I wouldn't give driver of the day to. Verstappen, maybe. Probably not. Magnussen, maybe not.
Yuki.
Latifi.
Sorry, Yuki. Yeah.
Yuki gets
I feel like I was all in on Yuki then. Oh.
Plonker of the day. Yuki Tsunoda. Mary says Mick. Rambol says Russell. Fantaboy 15 says Sainz. Katie says Russell. Nick's gone with Perez. Pretty Motobatsi. I've butchered that. I'm so sorry. I always say pretty. Says Sainz. Mechanized Chaos says Schumacher. KMS Boss says Checo or Lewis. So he's on our side. There you go, Dan. Someone agrees with us. Everett says Sainz. Tom says Russell. Purple Zebra says Mick. Will's gone with Hamilton. Just Me says Latifi. Professional Moron has gone with Perez. James says Mick. JMT1 says Russell. Sassy Lemon Cake says Mick Schumacher. EM says Leclerc. Eduardo says Perez, even though we didn't see it. How ironic then. Actually, thinking about it, yeah. Sainz wins the race, and we don't see anything of Perez. It's like they were like, oh, we'll let him have his moment, and then we won't bother covering Sainz in future again. Where did we get to? Let's scroll down a bit further. Sighty Canvas says everyone in the top 6. Glenn says Alonso, which is fair enough. Safe says Perez, almost repeated his Bahrain 2020 win. Yes, see, I'm not crazy. Indy says Magic Alonso. Michael's gone with Alonso as well for his points finish. Space says Checo, Stealth Alonso or Lewis. Stealth Alonso, I like that one. Checo, no question for Kevin. On Track says Hamilton. Checo was brilliant from dead last to podium, says Sighted Canvas. Clock Trip says Tom Cruise. It was Tom Cruise today. It was Keanu Reeves yesterday. Yeah. Who needs to see Charles Leclerc spinning on his fine lap when you can see Keanu Reeves? And that's not even sarcasm, you know? That's most important. Yuki says Kevin, why not? Rixie says Grosjean, just for you there, Dan. There you go. Charles says Sam, I'm so sorry this donkey team ruined another win for you. Ferrari are trash. And let's do 2 more. Pascal says Lewis and Seb, and no, there's loads in there, but they're all very much on the same line. So yeah, we'll leave it there. If you've got any questions, by the way, please do pop them in. We'll go for a few more minutes, answer a few of your questions for the last few minutes of this stream. Don't forget to drop a like. We're 49 away from 500, so if we could do that before we finish, that'd be absolutely incredible. Thank you as well to everyone for your super chats tonight. Massively appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any future content. Lots coming up over the next few weeks. There you go. Easy as that. It's as easy as that. So I just want to write down the time, actually. 1:59. Jesus. 2 hours, Dan. You're not escaping this time.
What a shame.
So yeah, waffle. chat, throw some questions at us if you like. I've just really enjoyed this weekend as a whole, to be honest, Dan. I think the qualifying yesterday with the rain really spiced it up quite nicely, gave us a mixed up grid, and then we come into the race, and obviously that awful crash at the start, but the race itself just throughout was brilliant. And I kind of didn't say it outright, but I did kind of poke or point towards it in my preview this week that a lot of people talk about how amazing Silverstone is for racing. We don't often see a lot of overtaking, a lot of great racing, a lot of action at Silverstone. It's not like it's every single season. We see some fantastic Grand Prix, but it's not a... There are some tracks that you look at and you're almost guaranteed a great race before you even get there. Silverstone's not one of those. So to see something that was just that brilliant, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm very, very, very happy that we had a great British Grand Prix, and it's Austria next, and then the misery of Paul Ricard. But potentially the last time, actually, if the rumours are true.
Yeah, which would be sad. As for someone who's...
Anyone who lives next door.
For lots of people. I mean, Australia was good this year. Most tracks have been pretty good this year. So Paul Ricard might be. I will say Silverstone, obviously it's a great track, but I feel this year has cemented that it's got to be top 2 or 3. Just every part of this track is incredible. So I'm so glad last year it got renewed, because this is one of those that just can never go.
So this is the thing as well. I'll throw it to you then. You've got to lose one of them, Paul Ricard or Spa, because that appears to be where we're at. One of those is going to go. Well,
I mean, I don't think anyone in their right mind says Paul Ricard, even me. I don't even think French people say Paul Ricard, if I'm honest, because Spa's only the 20-minute drive anyway.
Cameron just says in chat, is there still rumours of a race in Nice? I've seen the story. I've seen the talk of it, a street race, I think, in Nice. And I know that F1 are saying it's not a threat to Monaco. But I don't really know too much on it, Cameron. But I think... I like Magny-Cours as a track. I'm not a fan of Paul Ricard. Yes, last year's race was all right, but I don't really like the track itself. Gives me a headache as well. Looking at it from the helicopter camera gives me a headache. But no, I'd quite fancy a race in Nice. The only problem with a race in Nice is that it's another street track, and I think let's not go down. I mean, they're better than Formula E street tracks, but let's not go down the Formula E route of just street tracks everywhere. We still need your Silverstones and your Spas and even your classic tracks like Zandvoort. Yes, it's difficult to overtake on, but it's such a classic. We still need these challenges, because that's what I like about Formula One. You have a good mix of street tracks, good mix of classic tracks, and good mix of brand new purpose-built tracks, and you've got a real test of teams and drivers across the board, and that's what I want to see. I don't just want a load of street tracks and going to the highest bidder. I'm not saying that's what the situation is with Nice, but I don't know. I think I prefer it to Paul Ricard, but just lots of... It's the John T argument. I'm going to say it for him. So many racetracks in the world. Look at North America. So many great racetracks, and we're going to a street track in Vegas and Miami, and you're like, oh. I know they want to take it to the fans, but God, give us a good racetrack. Come on.
Yeah, but here's the other argument as well. Though they want to take it to the fans, look at how many people showed up this weekend to Silverstone. It's not as if Silverstone's in a big city.
Apparently.
Exactly. So I know it's... I mean, is it more expensive? I mean, I imagine it's a similar price if you have a race in a city compared to out at a circuit. I suppose the only argument is there's people already living there, isn't there? But
yeah, but still, I mean, Silverstone's crazy bloody money. You can get to race in Europe, including travel and accommodation, cheaper than a weekend at Silverstone.
Yeah, that's very true. But places like Baku, I mean, yes, you'll bring it to the people and people can see it from their windows, but it's not as if there's many grandstands to watch it from. So are there that many people from Baku that get to actually watch the race? I don't know.
I have no idea. I know Monaco people hang from the balconies, don't they?
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah. I don't know, honestly. I think it'd be a shame if we didn't have a race in France in some ways, because we've got Ocon, who's in F1 for a little while now. We've got Pierre Gasly as well. Oscar Piastri possibly coming through. French team as well. I think it'd be a shame if we didn't have a French Grand Prix.
But... Why'd you say Piastri coming through? Do you mean Porsche?
Do you want to take over, Dan? I've just got a bed.
No, not to throw you under the bus again, but I'm just saving you from the comments.
No, I did mean Porsche. Yeah.
Yeah,
The French
I know
guy.
you've missed me. I know you've missed me.
Yeah, I've lost it. But also in my defence, Piastri and Alpine Junior and Alpine Renault French.
Yeah, no, I thought that's what you were going for. I just wanted to clarify.
Exactly what I meant, Dan. That is exactly what I meant. I'm going to start again. Hey guys, no, I'm not really. Go right for the top. What a race. Stilton doesn't get any government funding for the race, unlike other countries, as far as I remember. Hence, tickets so expensive compared to other races. Absolutely, Black Hawk. So I was going to say that was my point. I was going to come to. That's the thing with Silverstone is they get no money. A lot of not all tracks do, but a lot of tracks do. So they have to make their money through charging a fortune for stall pitch. That's why I think I saw some shots of Alpha Tauri caps or something for 60 quid. Or something like that at Silverstone. It's like, just go on the website and get it for 35, Still expensive for a hat, but you're getting racetrack tax, aren't you? Because they've got to pay for their pitch. Let's not get into this, but they've got to pay for their pitch. Then they've got to make money on the thing that they're selling, so they have to ramp up the prices. So it's, it's get your merch before you go, definitely. As I can testify, because I bought a Mercedes team jacket back in 2016. It cost me over 200 quid.
From the track?
From the track. Because I'm an idiot. I wanted a souvenir and then I regretted it because I had no money for the rest of the month.
Couldn't eat.
Michael.
Had to eat the jacket.
Michael in space. So Michael says, do you think the Merc is back in the mix? And Space says, do you reckon Merc have made inroads, or was it the smoother surface of the purpose-built Grand Prix track making their porpoising or masking their porpoising issues? So I think they've solved the porpoising, haven't they? It's more the bouncing and the bottoming out that they've been struggling with. And I suspect it is. So to kind of answer Michael's question, I think they have made steps forward and they are going to get themselves back in the mix. I think they'll be closer going forward than they were a few weekends ago to the top two, but I still think this is going to be Red Bull versus Ferrari, if we're being ambitious, all the way. I think Red Bull are looking very, very strong. A long way to go, of course, but I think you're still going to be Red Bull versus Ferrari at the front, with Mercedes kind of like this weekend getting in the mix and some weekends being stronger than others. I do suspect it's track specific because we've been here with Spain. They were very good on that track and then kind of fell away a little bit, and then they've been really good this weekend. But I think, how can I word this? So they'll fall away less after Silverstone than they did when they went to Monaco, if that makes sense. They're not going to fall quite so far. They're much closer in Austria than they would have been a few weeks ago, I guess is what I'm getting at. So I think there's an element of track specificness to it, but they definitely seem to have made a step in recent races anyway, don't they, Dan? I'd argue. They seem to be on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton was out in Q1 in Saudi. I can't see that happening again this season. But then I didn't see that happening in Saudi. But the fact they've gone from that and fought for the victory today almost on pace, I mean, that shows enough that they've made strides forward. And I think you're right, there's still a bit more work to do. And I think the fact that it is quite a smooth circuit masks some of their issues. But we are going to a track that is also a purpose-built circuit. It's a shorter track that I feel that just naturally by the nature of the track and how short it is and lots of high-speed corners, not many braking zones, that kind of condenses the field spread anyway. So I don't want to run away and say they've got a good chance of winning, but I think they'll be in a similar kind of position in Austria. So, yeah, it's not going to be a year where I think they're going to be fighting at the front, but I think it'll be like a few years ago when it was Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes, and it was kind of Red Bull on the fringes at that point where Danny Rick and Max would maybe get a victory here and there. I can kind of see that happening for the rest of the year, but Mercedes kind of on the fringes.
That'd be all right though, wouldn't it? Having that third team just in the mix from time to time. We want three at the front if we can, but as Bill will say, they're not out of this Mercedes. They could pip Ferrari. You never know. I think Austria is a big test, I suppose, is what I'm getting at. It'll be good to see. If they are as quick in Austria as they are at Silverstone, then I think they're looking very, very good. But I do still think this is Red Bull versus Ferrari. Karun on Sky was showing how much time Ferrari had to pit Charles. It kind of made them look stupid. That's from Kevin. He was responding to somebody else. The thing is as well with the Karun Chandok stuff, he's absolutely right. When you go through the analysis, they did have time to make that decision. However, that's Karun Chandok pausing it and explaining as he goes, and it feels like a much longer 6 seconds with Karun Chandok analysing feels a lot more than 6 seconds actually is, if that makes sense. So, we'll give them grief. We always will because it's Ferrari strategists, but they're making these decisions in real time, split seconds. They're also paid the big bucks to do it, so I don't know, but yeah. I remember in the early 2000s getting a full weekend ticket for Silverstone for around 150 quid, and that included camping pitch. Last time I went to Silverstone, it was £80 per person for the camping pitch alone. Per person. 160 quid to camp, which is just crazy. And then you've got your actual getting into the circuit, which is madness. I wanted to go this year, but I waited because I wanted to make sure I had the money to do it. And then it sold out like the day after the tickets went up or something. It's like, oh, well, that's not happening then, is it? I'll watch it on telly, which actually, funnily enough, I'm kind of glad I did this year because, yes, it's a great experience being at a racetrack, but you don't get to see everything, do you? Yeah, if you get sat opposite a big screen, you're generally all right, but sometimes at Silverstone, the signal's a little bit cack. But you don't get to see it all, do you? Like you do on TV, or the most of it, like you do on TV. So I was kind of glad with the race. If it's a boring race, then yeah, I'll sit there and watch and go around 52 laps. That's fine.
Yeah, this was one of those ones that, don't get me wrong, would have been incredible to be there. But this was also one of those ones, there was an awful lot going on. So it was also nice to see it from home as well. And you're right, it's not the cheapest. I mean, you're saying 160 quid for camping, but what? It's 20 quid for some chips and a burger. So everything there is mega expensive.
It is. It's, yeah. I can't remember. About 7 quid a pint of cider, I think, last time I went. It was nice cider, to be fair. It wasn't 7 quid nice. Anyway, let's all swap stories about our times at racetracks. Why not? That could be a fun stream at some point, actually. Tactical blunders every week. Congrats, Carlos, though. I'm not going to talk about NADS. If you follow the news and things that happen, then you'll know who NADS is. I booed. Why not? It was nice of her, though, to be fair, to turn up to a race pitch. So there you go. No more street tracks, says Adam. I'm not saying no more street tracks, but we don't need to be replacing classic tracks with, or not just classic tracks, just all the good tracks we've got with street tracks, just because they've got a bit of money. I also wanted to race in Germany, but look what happened. Says Mary. Yeah, I'd quite like a race. There's some talk they're trying to get back a race in Germany, aren't they? Maybe some kind of race share again situation, or doing it alternate years, maybe Hockenheim. I'd like a German Grand Prix because it's you know, Germany's got such a big part of F1 history, hasn't it? Or it has been such a big part of F1 history. So it's a shame that it can't be on the calendar, but
I mean, we've got a Schumacher in F1 and no German Grand Prix. That I mean,
still
Seb as well,
German
don't get me wrong.
Champion, It's a money thing, unfortunately, for tracks like Hockenheim. I don't know if anybody is from Germany and knows the answer. Please do let me know. But I don't know. I think Hockenheim are in a similar position to Silverstone in that they don't always get funding from like government or something like that. I might be wrong on that. I might have misread that. But I did see somebody asking about Logan. I need to get a quick drink down. So I did see someone asking about Logan Sargent's win today. Any thoughts on that? I know you love your F2.
I do. Very, very impressive, I think, Logan Sargent. He's someone that a couple of years ago when Piastri won F3 and Sargent was in the fight for the victory right until that last weekend in Mugello, I thought, yeah, just like Piastri, this is a special driver here. And then when Piastri got promoted to F2 last year, it was kind of weird that Sargent didn't and was put in not one of the better teams in F3 and had an okay campaign, a couple of wins, but never quite hit the heights of that first rookie season. I was surprised he got moved up to F2, but kind of glad. And it seems like he's kind of picked up where he left off in that first season of F3. And his rookie year of F2 has had a solid start. But this weekend, I would argue dominance in Silverstone, definitely the class of the field. And he's not at the moment, really, you would argue, in that Drivers' Championship fight. I think Porsche and Drugovich are a bit far ahead at the moment, but it's not over. And I think Drugovich and Porsche have had some up and down weekends recently. And if Sargent can do what he did this weekend for the rest of the season, he will be in the hunt. And I know we don't want to talk silly season too much, but whereas earlier you were talking about Latifi and maybe Piastri jumping in, Sargent, as a Williams young driver at the moment, is doing a good job in F2. So for some teams, they might consider Piastri, and I think he will be an option for Williams. But he's one of the better young drivers out there at the moment, Sargent. I do really like him. And, you know, an American in F1 does have its commercial benefits. So keep an eye, I would say.
It's a good point, actually, isn't it? It sounds like Piastri, but if Sargent performs, that American market could be one that Williams could tap into, and they might see that as a driver that's performing well in F2s to give him a chance, but also and a driver with potential, but also an opportunity to make some commercial gains in the US because they've got an American driver. So, they had the maple leaf, didn't they, on the car for Canada for Nicholas Latifi. So I'm not saying it'd be something like that, but I just mean that they could maybe use that as a way to pull in a bit of cash if Latifi were to. Oh, yeah, actually, that's not bad. Yeah. That's something to ponder, Dan. Thank you for that. I like that one.
You're welcome.
Casey says, too many good drivers in F2. There's this. Hauger's been impressing me this year, I must admit. So, yeah, I think I don't know if it's it's not one of the strongest grids we've seen, but it's still a very good grid of young drivers. I look forward to the stint coming up in Austria. More action. I'm going to make the point in my preview. But for the first time in 2 years, we're only getting one event at the Red Bull Ring, but we're still ending up with 2 races because we've got the sprint on Saturday. So the Red Bull Ring just love a couple of races. Why would we only have one? To get 2 in one weekend. So there you go. But looking forward to the sprint, Dan, next Saturday.
I had honestly blanked that from my mind. I had no idea it was a sprint next weekend.
Could be good at Austria, to be fair. It might be quite good there.
Yeah. You know what? Upon hearing it's a sprint, I was a bit excited when you said that, which never ever happened. So from that alone, I guess I am. But I feel that's off the back of Silverstone because that was so nuts today. I just want more. So if it can be a fun sprint, which I feel the one we had in Imola was all right, I'm going to be open-minded and put it that way.
I like Purple Zebra's response. Shrug. That's kind of how I am. Looking forward to the sprint, Sean. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm also not as hyped. I mean, some people really get hyped for it, and F1 get really hyped for it. But as long as we still keep qualifying on a Friday and we don't start ditching that for an extra sprint let's have a sprint on a Friday, then a second sprint on a Saturday, 3 races on a Sunday. Why not? I just saw a question. Should drivers have a shelf life? Asked Michael. After so long, be forced to retire after a certain number of years, aka Fernando, Lewis, or Sebastian. My stance on this is it's very simple. It's a very broad, I guess, generalization, but it's the same for people, men, women, whoever been in Formula One. It's the same for whatever age you are. The only measure of a driver should be the stopwatch. If you are fast enough, you are good enough. And if you are good enough, then it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman. It just doesn't matter. If you are quick enough, you'll be in F1 and you should be in F1. So if Fernando wants to race till he's 85, as long as he's still quick enough and fit enough, obviously, then, yeah, that's absolutely fine by me. It does... We do get to this point, don't we, with F1, where we end up with the bottleneck because you've got F2, so much talent coming through over the years, and then only 1, maybe 2 come through at a time. We had Norris, Russell, and Albon, didn't we, that year, all came through together, but you still get 1 or 2 maybe come through, and then maybe nothing happens for a year, and that gets frustrating. I can understand why people might think that we need to usher drivers off so that young drivers get a chance, but, if the stopwatch is all that matters to me in Formula One. And if you're quick enough, you're good enough. It's the same as, I remember with Fernando Alonso, I think Alonso was one of many drivers, actually, who was concerned by Max Verstappen when he came into the sport at 17 years old, said it was too young. And it's a phrase that Martin Brundle always used, and it's always stuck with me, is if you're good enough or you're fast enough, you're old enough. Now, I draw the line at 12 years old or something like that, but I think if you're 17 and you are quick enough, as Max Verstappen proved he was and has gone on to prove that he's good enough, then I don't see why there's an issue there, and that goes the other way too. So plus I think maybe I'm weird and maybe I'm wrong, but I look at Vettel and Alonso, especially Alonso, since his time out, but he's just out there enjoying himself, and he's giving us a great show. I mean, look at him today. He could have been he could have done a proper Fernando today and shocked us all with a triple overtake at one point. I thought it was going to happen. So they're enjoying themselves. Seb's enjoying himself. So yeah, as long as they're quick enough, it doesn't matter. They'll tail off. Raikkonen tailed off, but he was still quick. Dan gave him driver of the day every weekend.
No, only on the weekends he did absolutely nothing. But yeah, even Raikkonen at the end, I mean... Yes, Piastri was brilliant last season, and I feel he should be in Formula One, but I feel years gone by, there's not been too many that have slipped through the cracks that Raikkonen has blocked. maybe Nick de Vries if you want to argue that, but that's still a maybe. I still think most people would still choose Raikkonen over de Vries even now. So yeah, I don't think that's an issue that can be solved by putting an age limit or a race number caps. I mean, race number of caps, I don't think that would work anyway, because what Verstappen's done is 150th and he's 24,
Yeah, that's it. He's
25.
got to retire now. It's done.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't do that. And an age thing, I mean, Alonso, I think many people, maybe me included, I've not thought this through what I'm about to say, but I still think most people would put him in their top 10 on the current grid. So age is just a number in Formula One. And that's more of an issue that can be solved by new teams, more teams. And look, this year we've got that lovely rule where each team has to have a rookie in their car at some point. And I think that's a better step forward rather than, nope, you can't drive, you're too old.
Nick says, not a big fan of sprint, but better than practice sessions. That's kind of my stance, to be honest, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather watch a sprint than a practice. I hate FP3. If I could get rid of one practice session, it'd be FP3. I don't know why I hate it so much. It's exactly the same as FP1 and FP2, except it's on Saturday morning, and I just think that it's such a waste. Well, not a waste, but I just doesn't... The teams obviously gain something from it, but you'll have, like, Red Bull do it quite often. A lot of teams do. They'll miss the first 20 minutes. Well, don't bother then. Let's do something more. So I'd much rather a sprint than a practice session, definitely. So, yeah, I'd be up for that one. Kimi's quali pace tailed off last year, says Pascal. Adam says rookies in the sprint races. Did I read somewhere? Correct me if I'm wrong. We'll wrap up in a minute. But did I read somewhere there was some talk about having a couple of non-championship races for junior drivers a year? Did I read that somewhere? Did I dream that? I may have dreamt that.
That sounds like it could be one of your dreams. But maybe you have. I don't know. I've not come across anything like that, but you're a bit more on it these days than me. So I'll go with... I'll trust you with this one. I'll trust you.
I just seem to remember it might have just been a rumor. But I have it in my head that I read it somewhere, so I probably didn't. Look, my mind is occupied by two things at the minute.
Oh, here we go again.
Formula One and the puppy. And the pup.
You haven't mentioned that.
He's so cute, but fucking hell.
Are you talking about me or the puppy?
Oh, not you. I just don't. They chew everything, including me. I've lost 2 pairs of shoes. I just want to sleep. No, he's honestly he's been. I said it on Twitter. He's been an absolute star. So I shouldn't moan. It's keeping an eye on him and training him is taking a bit of time away. But you know, putting the hours in now apparently will be worth it according to experts. So. There you go. Replace the sprints with that. Perfect, says Adam. What have I missed, Adam? Rookies in the sprint races. Yeah, I like a couple of races for the rookies would be quite cool in a season. That'd be nice. We've got the FP1 sessions, haven't we, for some juniors? Not sure Nick de Vries is a junior still, but Sasa says, hey man, congrats on 126k. Have we hit 126k subs? I've not hit a milestone for a while, I don't think, because I've been so inconsistent. So, oh yeah, we have. That's so cool. Thank you very much, everyone, for your subs. 126,000. Growth hasn't been great lately because I've been slacking, but we'll get sorted, I promise. I have posted pictures of him on Twitter. I have Mechanized Chaos. They're on there somewhere. I'll do some more when he's not eating everything. Basically, a couple more quick fire questions then, and then we shall round up for today. Would Drugovich ever get an F1 seat, or has he taken too long in F2? Says is it Multi or Molt? See, I think I said last time I streamed that I think Drugovich is maybe falls into that Nick de Vries category, and it took him quite a while, and maybe that doesn't look so good if you've been in F2. How long's he been in F2, Drugovich?
This is season 3.
Yeah, well, that's not
and
too
last
long
year,
though, is it? That's not...
Same as de Vries when he won his title. I mean, last year he was in a quick car, and arguably he's not in as quick a car this year. But I mean, then to the argument, what's more impressive, Pourchaire and Sargent being in the fight and second and third, or Drugovich in his 3rd season winning? Who's the real winner out of that, if that kind of makes sense? Because I would argue a rookie who finishes 3rd, a close 3rd, is more impressive than someone who's had a few years to get used to the car and wins it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's not got the luxury of having a backing from Formula One team.
He's done a good job, though, hasn't he? He's had a really good season.
Yeah.
So I've just checked the photo. Apparently, the puppy is laid on the sofa listening to my live stream, but he's gone to sleep. I'm not quite sure how to take that. So if anyone's fallen asleep, wake up. We're finishing, I promise. One more then. I think Drugovich has surprised me a little bit this year, but I think he's probably behind a number. I'm going to pull up F2 again, the F2 grid again. I always do this, don't I? I don't need that anymore. I've moved to a 4-screen setup as well. And I still think I need a fifth. I think I have 100 screens here and I still need 101. So it's just looking to have things open. Oh, come on. Why are you not loading? There we go. Who we got on the grid then? So you'd probably argue Teo Pourchaire is ahead of him in the chance of an F1 seat because of his Sauber backing. Logan Sargent potentially at Williams. Deruvala, Lawson there with the Red Bull group, obviously, or the Red Bull Racing Junior program. Marcus Armstrong's got a bit quiet, hasn't he? He was linked with F1 quite a bit. That one's gone a bit quiet. Obviously, Yuri Vip's probably not. Certainly not for a while anyway. He's not going to be going with Red Bull. You've got quite a few drivers that might be ahead of him in the pecking, but he is top of the standings. So
by quite a way as well, in fairness to him.
42 points? Yeah, 42 points. Yeah. So he's doing a cracking job, isn't he, really?
Yeah, exactly. I credit where credit's due, and even his first season, he was very impressive in that MP car. So he's someone who would be in for a shout. And it's been a while since we've had a Brazilian in Formula One, and I'm certain there's a big market for that. So there might be a few eyes on that.
One more.
And actually, sorry, just to add on that as well. I mean, Guan Yu Zhou's done great in F1 this year, and he didn't win at all in 3 seasons. So it would be unfair for me to say Drugovich doesn't deserve it when Zhou's been great, and I'm all for having Zhou.
Still need more teams to give all these guys a chance, says Nick. Oh, ain't that the truth? 2 more. I'll be happy at 2 more. But then, a bit like my screens, if you had 2 more, would you need a third? That's the trouble, isn't it? So I just saw Buddha Boy says 2 words for Sebastian Vettel haircut. Look, as a balding man myself, if I'd had a hair transplant, I can tell you now, I'd be growing my hair down to my backside. I absolutely would. But yeah, we shall wrap it up there, I reckon, Dan. Bit longer today because number 1, the race was freaking incredible. But also I wanted to punish you for leaving me early last week, so or last time, because I'm really cruel. But yeah, pleasure as always, mate. Great to talk to you. It's a fantastic race, so that makes these streams even more exciting as well, because most people are in a good mood, including us. I'm sorry that my brain doesn't work anymore as well. Apologies for that. But yeah, Austria next, and then a week off, and then France and Hungary, and then amazingly, it's the summer bloody break already.
Yeah, that's the bit that's mad, is that we're almost at the halfway point, and 10 races down, been a great start to the season. And I think this one, we've said it a few times, but I think, yeah, race of the season. So very, very glad. Thanks for having me, bud. Very much enjoyed it. And yeah, fingers crossed next one is even better.
It better be. If they can just keep getting better until we're having aneurysms towards the end of the year because we can't cope with the excitement. That's great. But yes, mate, thank you very much for today, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, man. See you later, chat.
Bye. Yes, thank you to Dan. Thank you to all of you guys as well for tuning in. A pleasure as always. We're 2 away from 500, so a couple more likes. That'd be massively appreciated. We've done that then for Charles Edward Cheese. Thank you for your super chats as well. Always appreciate you supporting the channel. I forgot to do the flipping end screen again, so apologies to my new patron. I will change that, I promise. I will do it for Austria. In fact, I'm going to write it on my freaking pad. End screen. So apologies. I'm supposed to do that at the start of every month, and I always forget the live stream one. Thank you to Nick for your late super chat as well. Says thanks, Sean. Thank you to you, Nick. Great to interact in chat as well. Thanks to everyone for your conversation. Now I will be back on Thursday with the Austrian Grand Prix preview. Very exciting. I do like the Red Bull Ring, and if you follow the channel long enough, you'll know that the Red Bull Ring is a really, what did I say? Trick quack or something like that? I don't know. But yeah, Austria next. So looking forward to that one. Always throws up a good race. And then we'll be live next Sunday with the usual reaction stream. And I will get back to more than one video and live stream a week very, very soon, I promise. Don't forget to follow me on social media as well. All the links you need for that in the description down below. Please do leave a like. Always helps the channel out. We've hit 500, so that's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, Goodbye.